Delegates, can I call Congress to order? Thank you, everybody, for making the early start this morning. I hope you all had good evenings last night. Thank you for everyone that came to the President and Vice President's do. It was really lovely to see so many people there. Just a quick couple of announcements. I've just had anybody in the gallery who wants to use their phone or take phone calls, could you please step outside, because it makes it really difficult for anybody in the gallery to hear the speeches. If people are talking on their phones, that would be really appreciated. Thank you. I've been told that the SGN Fringe has been cancelled. And can I just say thank you to London Region for the supply of popcorn this morning on the top table. Yesterday it was Wales and South West gave us sweets, and so, yeah, not that I'm asking any other regions for anything, but thank you very much. I understand that the Standing Orders Committee have another report to Congress, so can I invite Karen Dudley to the rostrum to move Standing Orders Committee report number 3.
President Congress, Karen Dudley, Standing Orders Committee Chair, moving SOC report number 3. Withdrawn motions. The SOC has been informed that the following motions have been withdrawn. These are motions 46, Trade Union Education Cuts from Southern Region, and motion 104, Trade Union and Employment Rights from Wales and South West Region. Existing policy motions. The SOC has confirmed that motion 199, Mental Wellbeing for the Future Workforce, is existing policy and should be endorsed without the need for debate. Emergency motions. The SOC has accepted an emergency motion, and this is Emergency Motion 1, NHS Pay, standing in the name of North East Yorkshire and Humber Region. The time for the emergency motion will be advised. President Congress, I formally move SOC report number 3.
Thank you, Karen. Does anybody wish to come up and speak against the report? No? In that case, can I take a vote on the Standing Orders Committee report number 3? All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? Thank you, Karen. That takes us on to the local gift, and this year it's Midlands, and Congress selected by Midlands Region the recipient of the Congress 24-24 local gift of £2,000 is St Luke's Hospice in Cheshire, which is the hospice who provided our organiser Michelle McCrossan with support before her passing in October 2023. So a really fitting recipient of the gift. A presentation to the charity will follow Congress in the region. However, Midlands do want to say a few words, I believe. So I've been told that somebody wants to make a short speech.
Good morning, President, Congress. Jacqueline Murphy, Midlands Region, speaking on behalf of the region in accepting the Congress Local Gift 2024. Each and every fight for equal pay started with a woman standing up and holding those in power to account. For the women workers of Birmingham City Council, that woman was Michelle McCrossan. When Michelle took over responsibility for the council, she found a glaring disparity in pay that had been ignored for years. She had the bravery to stand up and to start asking questions. With a tenacity that became her trademark, Michelle's questions uncovered years of direct discrimination against women workers. Even though she was still ignored by council bosses, she refused to give up. She started a campaign that has shook the council. For the first time, women workers had a champion that would make sure their voice was heard. For the first time, women workers had a route to start the fight back. The campaign that Michelle started was built not just around a legal challenge, but around taking that fight into workplaces. Michelle reminded us that we are a union. We are built around workers' strength and solidarity. We will win when we organise in workplaces. We lost Michelle to cancer last year, but her strength and commitment lives on in the campaign that she started. Her legacy is that over 3,000 women workers have lodged equal pay claims in Birmingham City Council. It is the workers from 35 schools who stood together and took strike action to fight for equal pay. It will be in the GMB victory that wins back the money our women workers have had robbed from their pockets. As a tribute to Michelle, we are proud to accept the Congress local gift. And we will be donating the gift to St Luke's Hospice in Cheshire in memory of Michelle McCrossan. Thank you.
Thank you. I went up to Birmingham when those women took that strike action, and it was such an amazing day to see women who've never been on strike before taking action and feeling empowered. So a real legacy that Michelle has left for those women, and yeah, all victory to them. Thank you. We move on to motions 186, 187, 188. So if I could ask the movers and seconders to come down. These motions are under social policy, general, and if mover of motion 186 could come straight to the rostrum, please. Thank you.
President, Congress, Tracy Beeson, London Region, motion 186. Title of motion, low-level letterboxes. This Congress asked GMB to work with companies on amending building regulations to require letterboxes in new buildings to be positioned above a certain height. We are aware that we cannot change the heights of letterboxes for existing older properties, but we need to change for future builds. We note that low-level letterboxes causes problems in our courier delivery service members when carrying out their work. The height position of the letterbox is a huge importance for postal courier workers, as back injury is the primary cause of sickness in the courier industry. Opening positions at the bottom of the doors can cause serious health and safety problems due to back strain caused by repeatedly bending down to deliver parcels. Low-level letterboxes are also present at security risk, as it is possible for thieves to reach in and steal letters and parcels that are sitting close to the opening. Both Royal Mail and the Communications Workers Union, CWU, who represent postal workers, have been campaigning to have minimum letterboxes height guidelines enshrined in law, and they have been lobbying MPs, government ministers, local authorities and developers. This rose to parliamentary prominence in January 2019 when the Private Members Bill, Low-Level Letterboxes, Bill in the minimum letterbox height, sponsored by the CWU and the Royal Mail, was presented to the House of Commons. This received support of all the parties but hasn't gone any further. We understand that the Building Regulations Advisory Committee, which advises the Secretary of State on building regulations, has formally endorsed the call to change and sought to include this in the formal review of the UK building regulations. Congress, why do we see that in 2024, 5 years later, nothing has been done? Changing building regulations to this effect would bring us in line with the Europe where a letterbox must be between 0.7 millimetres and 1.7 high. Congress, we are asking for the GMB to push the government to ensure that letterbox heights is incorporated in building regulations for all new buildings. And if you give me 1 minute, I just need to post my letter. Thank you. I move.
Well done, Tracy, and thank you for the person who had to hold that up. Brilliant prop, thank you. Seconder?
President, Congress, Stephen Clare, London Region, first-time delegate, first-time speaker. Second in motion 186. I have worked for Angling Windows for 32 years, so I'm aware that in 2019 there was legislation. 2019 legislation was there a British standard BS EN 13724 that all future letterboxes are between 0.7 metres and 1.7 metres high minimum. But as our motion points out, building regulations require that letterboxes in new houses to be positioned at a certain height has never been changed. A person who is directly involved in making new PVC doors myself, I know that these regulations need to change, and I will bring this up with my health and safety reps and my health and safety officer and manager. I'm sure many of you in this room have been out delivering election leaflets, so you'll be aware of the risk of health and safety. We also need to protect our members making deliveries such as the mover from Every and work with our sister union CWU for the Royal Mail and postal workers. Clearly, there has been no thought given to these poor workers. Postal and delivery workers have long rounds and heavier bags and would need to bend over to deliver the lower letterboxes, as you just see. As you can imagine, this causes repetitive strain injuries and back problems. Congress, the challenge is we need to protect all our delivery workers to make it a legal height limit to our letterboxes building regulations. Congress, please support this motion and vote for motion 186.
Well done, Stephen. Well done. Thank you. Mover of motion 187, please.
President, Congress, Cathy Hanlon, London Region, moving motion 187 on food banks. In 2010, the number of people receiving emergency parcels from the Trussell Trust food banks was 61,468. In 2023, it was nearly 3 million, 2,986,203 to be exact. This is one of many blights that 14 years of Tory government has inflicted on our society. This increase is unsustainable and it is evident that the Trussell Trust needs support. Otherwise, many people, including some of our members, will have to continue to go without food. This is why we are calling on the GMB to show practical and meaningful solidarity with the Trussell Trust and all the people who are forced to rely on its services. This can be done by affiliating to the Trussell Trust and donating by collecting food and other items at a branch level. We, of course, acknowledge the qualification from the CEC that any affiliation and donation requests should be assessed by the CEC's Finance and General Purposes Committee. Union finances are precious and should be carefully handled. However, we are confident that the Trussell Trust will be deemed to be in line with the GMB policy and values, and cost requirements of basic solidarity will not be too prohibitive. Congress, we are now in a position where the state is falling to provide all its citizens with food, and many have been reduced to depending on the kindness of others. We can and must help to fill this void until the new government is able to fix this. Please vote for our motion and go back to your branches and encourage your sisters and brothers to support the Trussell Trust by donating and affiliating. Thank you. I move.
Thank you, Tracy. Kathy. Thank you, Kathy. A seconder, please.
Motion 187, food banks. President, Congress, Coral Feynman, London Region, first-time delegate, first-time speaker. Congress, the prevalence of food banks is a stark reflection of our society under the Tories, a fact that should trouble our conscience and stir us to action. This year, I organised my first workplace food bank collection. I asked my local food bank for a list of most needed items, put it on the notice board and set up a collection point. It really was quite an easy thing to do. I had early doubts about whether it would be a success. The cost of living crisis has been hard on many of my colleagues as well. However, after rallying support for from the GMB members and the rest of the workforce, we were quickly on our way to our target of 100 items. I was so happy when the branch then agreed to match this, with my employer quick to follow. More than 300 essential items, and all it took was a shopping list and a few conversations. I urge all branches and regions to adopt their local food bank and organise workplace collections. Further, I ask GMB to throw its full weight behind the Trussell Trust, the UK's largest food bank provider, like my own London region, who donated 5,000 to the Trust every year. Congress, let us not forget the importance of solidarity and compassion in times of need. I second. Thank you.
Well done, Coral. Well done. Mover of motion 188.
That's not mine. President, Congress, Luke Simcock, H37 branch, London region, moving motion 188, reforming the adoption process and system. I recognise the impact of adoption has for children's lives in care and for the prospective adoptive parents. For me, the issue is very deeply personal. My wife's sister has two wonderful daughters, my nieces, that were adopted, and my brother has a son who found his forever home through adoption. These stories have shown me the incredible protection and incredible potential and opportunity that adoption gives to the children that are adopted. This motion aims for the government to create a more effective, inclusive and supportive adoption process that prioritises the well-being and stability for the children awaiting adoption. Throughout these reforms, we aim to achieve several major outcomes. By minimising the time children spend in care, we ensure that they are placed in permanent, loving homes. And currently it takes years, and many children spend far too long just being in someone's workplace rather than in someone's family. We need to identify and remove the barriers preventing qualified individuals and families from becoming adoptive parents. It includes simplifying the adoption process, providing better support for those going through the journey, and prospective parents face lengthy assessments, sometimes based on their finances, and bureaucratic delays. It's easier to adopt a dolphin than to adopt a child. Providing comprehensive support and resources to adoptive families is essential. Fostering stronger relationships with adoption agencies, social services and relevant stakeholders to create a more cohesive system. Establishing clear guidance standards and reporting mechanisms to ensure transparency and accountability throughout the entire process. Conducting a more thorough review of the current adoption procedures because they're currently not working for the children.
developing and implementing an educational programme and training sessions and support for adoptive parents as they go through and after the adoption process. The adoption system isn't working for the children that are in it, and if it isn't working for the children, then what is the point? The children are the most important part of this system. The children who grow up in the system are more likely to have addiction problems, they're more likely to go to jail. These children need love, these children need a family, and these children need a change, and these children need a chance. Congress, thank you for listening. I move.
Thank you, Luke. Well done. Seconder.
President, Congress, Nicola Waugh, seconding motion 188, reforming the adoption process and system. As a foster carer looking after babies, I have seen the adoption process close up. Foster babies are transitioned by the carers to their forever family homes. Adopters who can't wait to embrace them, but the system is failing them and failing the children in the system. From afar, the system seems understandably rigorous, with background checks, medicals, interviews, training, the list goes on. However, this process takes months and all too often years to complete. More recently, I became an adopter. So I have felt just how painful the system and process is. Sorry. I have met other adopters who after 3 years are still waiting for their approval. And all this time, the children remain in foster care. My views on the system are not alone, and everybody on the adoption training confirmed just how broken and bureaucratic the system and process is. Congress, with so many children needing loving, stable, caring homes, is a testament to the system being long overdue for reform. Congress, please support. I second.
Well done, Nicola. Thank you. No need to apologise. It's an emotional subject. Thank you. Does anybody wish to oppose? In that case, can I ask Colin Gunter to respond from the CEC?
President, Congress, Colin Gunter responding to motions 187 and 188 on behalf of the CEC. In one of the world's top richest countries, the reliance still on food banks in the UK is alarming. The CEC, therefore, supporting motion 187 with a small qualification that, in line with long-standing practice, any affiliation and donation request should be assessed by the CEC's Finance and General Purpose Committee based on the merit of the organisation in line with GMB policy and values and requirements regarding costs. The CEC is asking for motion 188 to be referred. We agree with the sentiment of the motion, though it raises an area unfamiliar with the existing GMB policy and calls for reforming the adoption process and system are outside our industrial expertise as a trade union. We wish to understand more about this issue, including any work being undertaken by London Region, and we therefore ask for this motion to be referred to seek advice as appropriate. The CC is therefore asking Congress to support motion 187 with the qualification outlined and for motion 188 to be referred for the reasons set out. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Does London Region agree? I think I agree the qualification to motion 187. I think I heard it in the speech, just to confirm. Yep, thank you. And does London Region agree to refer motion 188? Thank you. So I don't need to take that as a vote. But all those in favour of motion 186 that the CC is supporting, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? That's carried. And all those in favour of motion 187, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? That's also carried. We now move on to the CEC statement, minimum service levels. A delegate, again from each region, will be invited to speak on the report, and I will call them in reverse order of the regions that spoke on yesterday's CEC statement, and I'll try and get them in the right order. But can I ask Kevin Buchanan to move the statement, please?
Thank you, President. President Congress, Kevin Buchanan, moving the statement on minimum service levels for the CEC. Congress, I hope and pray we are witnessing the dying days of the most shambolic anti-union government to disgrace public office. 14 years of bashing unions in the media and running key services into the ground. 14 years of imposing restriction after restriction, going further than even Margaret Thatcher. Our members don't take strike action because they want to disrupt public services. They take strike action because workers and those services are on their knees. Workers are not a threat to society's safety net. They are the safety net. And we will always defend our members when they come under attack. Minimum service levels are a violation of our fundamental rights. They are an attempt to distract attention from the Tories' catastrophic mismanagement of public services and critical infrastructure. They have gone from clapping our members to sacking them just for exercising their rights. Not even the employers asked for this. And the GMB has worked with other unions to ensure that not a single work notice has been issued. But make no mistake, if the Tories are returned to office, this agenda will be back with a vengeance. We are fighting the MSLs in the workplace, but ultimately it must be unmade in Parliament. The Labour Party has said that it would repeal the Strikes Act, and we must hold them to this commitment and ensure that the pledge is enacted within the first 100 days of a new Labour government. Congress, last year the union movement agreed a common agenda at the TUC Special Congress held in December. An agenda based on mutual support and working together to defeat any attempt to impose work notices on our members. We are asking you today to endorse that position. Congress, minimum service levels are an affront to the idea of a free society. We must put this issue on the ballot box next month. We must defeat the MSLs, defend our services and national infrastructure, defend our members. Congress, not one member left behind. Not one member left behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Can I ask Goyle and Brinkworth to second, please?
President, Congress, Goyle and Brinkworth seconding the statement. Congress, let's nail this lie once and for all. When our members took strike action in the NHS last year, they bent over backwards to protect the public. In fact, the locally negotiated cover was so comprehensive that delays actually fell on strike days. Our members left the picket line to ensure that the more serious calls were answered. They had been pushed to their limit because the NHS has been pushed to its limit, and patients are dying every day as a result. The minimum service level of 80%? Come off it. The NHS doesn't hit that target on a good day. We can't even get 80% of the ambulances on the road. And in some part of the country, a third of call handler vacancies are unfilled. These are low-paid workers who are amongst the worst hit by MSLs. In schools, the government is leaving it up to individual head teachers to draw up work notices. Can you imagine the chaos this will cause and the power that it puts in the hands of senior management? These pernicious regulations target low-paid workers and women in particular. Our members in the transport sector are also affected, and the threat of regulation hangs over the heads of our members in nuclear decommissioning. Congress, in times of adversity, there is hope. The union movement has been driven to a strong and united response. Management unions alongside the shop floor. We will resist the MSLs in the workplace. We have secured a commitment from the Labour Party that MSLs will be repealed. Now we need them to deliver. Congress, please support the TUC position. Please support the statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Goylan. Can I call the first speaker from Wales and South West, please?
President, Congress. Jonathan Strachan-Taylor, Wales and South West region, speaking in favour of the CEC's special report. Congress, minimum service levels are a nasty little move made by a nasty government. Although they try to argue that important services have to run in difficult circumstances surrounding industrial action, the truth is that it's a move to disrupt the rights of working people to take industrial action. Take it from somebody who works in the NHS. If this was about service, they would have them implemented around the clock. As sadly, many of our services run properly on days minimum service levels are enforced. Congress, we need to fight back on this. In Wales, we are lucky the Welsh Government, led by Vaughan Gethin, has stated publicly that they will not implement minimum service levels. This is the right course of action that defends our members' democratic rights. But we must do more across the rest of the UK. And whilst we know that the next Labour government has committed to rescind them, it's important that we fight against them from today. Not a few weeks' time or months' time. We must support the members when they receive notices so that they're not overwhelmed or anxious. We need to support and talking things out. We can ease the pressure on the members and the reps. We should do this with the support and backing of the Executive Committee and their added weight. We must challenge undemocratic rules both in person and in the courts. These challenges go against the framework of British democracy, and they must be rolled back at the earliest opportunity. We must name and shame the companies that use these practices so that our members and the public are informed of the kind of organisations they are. And we must mobilise the whole trade union movement to defend that this wholesale attack on trade union rights, to organise. Congress, this report gives our activists the tools and means to defend themselves against bad employers and a Tory government looking to continue its war on working class people. Agree this and let's give our members the ammo to protect themselves. Congress.
Thank you, Jonathan. Southern. Speaker from Southern region. Forbley, thank you. Scotland.
President, Congress, Gillian McFarlane, GMB Scotland, speaking in support of the CEC statement. First time delegate, first time speaker. Congress, the Tories' minimum service levels laws are yet another obvious attack on trade unions and workers' rights. Not only is it unwanted by workers, it is also unwanted by many employers who have viewed it as unworkable and unhelpful in industrial relations, but this hasn't stopped the Tories. Unworkable and unhelpful are also perfect ways to describe this Tory government. Public services across the UK have been bombarded with cuts for 14 years now. Services are on their knees and the workforce are put under more and more pressure. In many cases, the workforce are not just out the door, they're out the country looking for opportunities elsewhere. What the Tories fail to understand is that trade unions are not just fighting for better pay terms and conditions for our members. We are fighting for better public services for the four nations. We can't have a world-class health service, for example, without the pay to match. In Scotland, the Scottish Government has refused to implement minimum levels, in large part due to their recognition of the value of trade unions in their public services and respect for workers' rights. This is an important example of how devolved parliaments and assemblies can provide direction, reflect the needs of people in their home nation and act as a buffer against the worst of Tory UK governments. The Labour Party have committed to repeal all the Tory anti-trade union legislation within the first 100 days of a UK Labour government, but they must match their commitment with action. This is not a commitment that can be watered down. It is a commitment which must be immediately acted upon and on which the Labour movement will judge Keir Starmer. But it is our job to hold their feet to the fire and make sure the Labour Party is true to its word. Congress, support the statement.
Well done, Gillian. North Western Irish region. North Western Irish region. Formally, thank you. North East Yorkshire and Humber.
Ollie Johnston, delegate from S30 NHS Branch Sheffield, North East Yorkshire and Humber region, speaking in support of the CEC statement on the minimum service levels. First time speaker. We welcome the CEC statement on minimum service levels, thank you. Last year the TUC passed a motion at Congress that set out a fighting strategy to oppose the new anti-strike law. It's important that GMB call on the TUC and the union movement to carry out the motion that was passed, as well as actioning what has been outlined in the statement, including coalitions of non-compliance, coordinating demands on employers, devolved governments and public bodies. We already have some of the strictest anti-trade union laws in Europe, and let's be clear, services are not able to deliver safe staffing levels on any day of the week. All of my shifts last week in the hospital were severely understaffed and unsafe. It isn't strike days that cause patient harm, it's the government's cuts and refusal to prioritise our public services. The government made this law under the guise of safety, but if they really cared about safety, they would be prioritising a fully staffed workforce across our public services and crucially in the NHS. How are we meant to sound the alarm on conditions on pay and safety when our rights are attacked again and again? Striking is our democratic right. We see the deterioration in our public services and it's patients and workers that will pay the price for the government's neglect. We need to be prepared that we may even need to continue for the fight for the NHS and other public services under a Labour government. So we need to up the pressure for the Minimum Service Levels Act to be repealed completely, but it's also time to go further than that. We need to repeal all the anti-trade union laws that go way back to the 80s and put this demand on an incoming Labour government. Please support the statement. Thank you.
Well done, Holly. Thank you. Midlands.
Good morning, President. Good morning, Congress. Simon Day, paramedic, branch secretary, West Midlands Ambulance Branch, here to endorse the motion, the statement for the Midlands region, and endorse everything that everybody has said so far. But not to say ditto, just to say that whenever we talk about strikes and COVID and clapping for NHS workers, I'm always reminded of Zoe. Zoe was an ambulance worker in our branch. She'd worked for the ambulance service for many years. She'd been clapped, called a hero, and then at 42 she contracted COVID. 2 years or so go by to the end of COVID, and her health, her income, and her career in the ambulance service were tatters because COVID took her last breath. She wasn't dead, but essentially, for all intents and purposes, she'd never work again. She would never see the flourishing career established that she thought she was going to have. And at times, she thought she might as well have been dead. Her employer, our employer, wanted to terminate the contract on the grounds that she couldn't fulfil her duties. And it was only the trade union standing next to her, supporting her, speaking for her, and standing up for her that made a difference, that turned that situation into something a little more bearable. And I always remember that story because we are in a constant struggle. And endorsing this statement on MSLs reminds me that we need to be endorsed that our struggles today are for our colleagues of tomorrow. And we need to commit, not just in a nod and a yes, but in action and in words, to fight every anti-trade union law that we face in our country today for our colleagues tomorrow. So on behalf of Midland Region, and I hope on behalf of all of us, let's endorse this statement and fight these horrendous laws wherever we see them. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. And London Region, please.
Good morning, President, Congress. Elizabeth Hughes, London Region, speaking to endorse this CEC statement. GMB London Region supports the statement. The Tories' introduction of minimum service levels is an insult to our members. Our members worked throughout the pandemic at great personal risk, and they now face being sacked for exercising their hard-won right to withdraw their labour. Congress, this is a slap in the face to all working people. Minimum service levels aren't just insulting, but they're also totally ineffective. They will not make the public safer. They will not benefit school pupils. They will not end disputes any quicker. Congress, that's not just what our members think. These are the views shared by the government's own impact assessment. But we all know what's really going on here. Minimum service levels were not introduced to protect the public. They serve a single purpose. They have been introduced as a Tory ideological attack on workers' basic rights. So let's be clear. The public is not being denied minimum service levels by our members' industrial action. They are being denied the services they deserve by the political decisions of 14 years of a Tory government. So our London region is committed to doing everything in our power to ensure that the Labour Party delivers on their promise to repeal minimum service levels in the first 100 days of a Labour government as part of the New Deal for working people. And Congress, be mindful, this is what is on the ballot paper in 3 weeks' time. So vote Labour, elect GMB Labour MPs and repeal the Tory minimum service levels legislation. Thank you.
No, thank you, Elizabeth. And before I put that statement to the vote, can I just ask the movers and seconders of motions 94, 96, 97 and 98 to come down to the front as well, please. Okay, so I will put that statement on minimum service levels to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? No, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. We now move on to employment policy, rights at work. And so can I ask the mover of motion 94 to come to the rostrum when they've got to the front. Thank you.
Hi, Murad Ali, London Region. First of all, I would start to give you some facts. Facts are UK is the sixth largest economy of the world and the second largest economy of Europe. And now the disappointing facts are how we are treating our younger workers, younger population. A research was done by the Equality Trust in 2023, and the name of the research was Your Time, Your Pay. The main purpose of the research was to assess the awareness, education, and application of the employment rights in the young age group workers. The sample taken to do this, to conduct this research was 1,018 16 to 24-year-olds. According to this research, young people were exploited at work. Now, how were they exploited? They were exploited all through legal means. There was no illegal route adopted. So they were exploited via unpaid trial shifts, working without a contract, zero-hour contracts, legally allowed lower minimum wages, not being auto-enrolled for pensions, and lack of education about employment rights. The research also found out that 73% of the young people were not the members of the trade union. Because of these challenges the young people faced, they suffered economic challenges as well. Many suffered. During post-pandemic, young workers were most likely to suffer job losses. They also suffered lack of education because of the school closures. They suffered wage discrimination because employers were legally allowed to pay them lower wages. Scarcity of housing means an increase in rent means they could not afford the rent, let alone getting onto the property ladder. And those who chose to go to the universities left the universities saddled with huge debts of thousands of pounds. Now, the two main lessons of this research was, first of all, educational institutions should focus more on imparting employment rights-related education to young workers. Secondly, it's a lesson for us as well, the trade unions. We need to do more to recruit younger workers. According to former United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan, what he says, have confidence in the young people, give them a chance, they will surprise us. So please, I vote for this motion 94. Thank you.
Thank you, Murad. And seconder?
Hello, I'm seconding this motion. I'm Jamie Walker from the M23 Unite branch, London region. President Congress, this is my first time as a delegate and first time as a speaker. Okay, so a nearly 50-year-old seconding the motion for day one protection on young workers isn't quite as strange as you think. My brothers and sisters in the sectors that are affected by this are some of the most dedicated people I know. The day one protections for young workers announced in Labour's New Deal for Working People are a good start, but we're asking for this motion to be supported to ensure that it's not just one and done. It's always easiest for unscrupulous employers to chip away at those just starting out in their working life and to burden them with unequal terms, while paradoxically relying on them to do the oddest times and shifts and be ever ready to go back to work. They rely on them going one step further, mindful that there's always more waiting in the wings if they disagree, while denying hard-fought rights and equalities that older workers enjoy. Congress, it's important for us to keep an eye on the protections for young workers as the GMB, and to make sure that the promises made are realised and defended as the years go by. We've seen how previous governments have weakened and splintered commitments on zero-hour contracts for a worker that needs to be employed for 2 years in sectors that traditionally rely on short-term employment. It's a ridiculous notion, and it's even sillier when it comes to having people and employers specifically looking for people to be employed on a lower rate, because it's legal to pay workers a lower amount when they're a younger age. It's not good for any of us at our stages of our working lives to have one set of working colleagues treated differently. We shouldn't do this for gender, we shouldn't do this for ethnicity, we shouldn't do this for disability, we shouldn't do this for sexual orientation, and we should not treat workers differently for their age. Please support this motion to help protect our young workers. I second.
Well done, Jamie. Spot on. Can I move for motion 96, please?
Hello, Congress. My name is Christian Lee Santa Barbara. I'm a first-time speaker, first-time delegate. I'm from the North East Yorkshire Humber branch, and I'm moving motion number 96. So I was glad to see that the CEC supported this motion. To me, it just makes sense. We are the third biggest union in the country, and already use our size to secure better rates for members in all elements of life: medical, dental and accident insurance. We are already good at this. It's not a new skill that needs to be developed. We do it already. So, as some of you may be aware, gig economy workers have had all their rights stripped, and all the enterprise risk and costs of work have been laid at our feet by what would be employers. These risks and costs deteriorate our living and hourly earnings, and all of this contributes to a loss of up to 30% per hour, depending on how busy the lot is of each gig economy worker. Therefore, it is logical for us to use our established networks, our bargaining power and our size to negotiate better rates for members for their ongoing expenses. Now, not only does this make sense for current members, but it strengthens the underlying offering for prospective members. So, for example, a theoretical discount of 10p per hour over our average 58-hour working week is £5.80 a week. That over 4 weeks pays for the membership, and it actually makes being in the GMB a financial net positive for members. This is money that's better in our union pocket as opposed to additional capital in corporate coffers for securities that in any ideal world should be provided in stable employment. So we have to remember that as we grow into representation in the on-demand sector and secure platforms like Deliveroo, we need to dynamically adapt our models to succeed in an area that's characterised by exploitative practices and increasingly precarious work. This simple motion will cost the union very little, but it shows so many opportunities, making working life better for members, it improves our passive offering, and it will grow our membership. It just makes sense. On a final note, we have an event today at 5:30 after Congress. You can come along, you can listen to me, you can hear our story, you can hear what we're doing in the gig economy and all the really great work that we're doing. So please do come along, ask some questions and just chat. I move. Thank you very much.
Well done, Christian. Well done. And the seconder, please.
President, Congress, Wayne Kirby, proud to be North East Yorkshire and Humber region. First time delegate, first time speaker. After 29 years on the production line working in KitKat, it is a privilege to be standing here talking to you as the GMB Nestlé York convener, speaking to support Christian by seconding motion 96. Congress, gig workers really deserve our full support and solidarity. The instability of their work, their lack of proper employment rights, holidays and pensions are a massive concern. Through our collective bargaining, there must be opportunities to improve the workplace conditions, whether it's through insurance or maintenance support. But most importantly, we must stand together as fellow workers to get gig workers the permanent employment rights they need and deserve. One in six adults work a gig job at least once a week. This is potentially millions of people that we should be reaching out to and organising. We know that organising gig workers can be hard and slow work, but by finding brilliant leaders like Christian, I know that we can rise to the challenge. For anyone that wants to know more about organising these workers, please come along to Christian's Fringe with Deliveroo. So Congress, please support this motion and let's stand together shoulder to shoulder with our gig workers and help them to organise to win. I second.
Well done, Wayne. I'm so impressed with our first-time delegates, first-time speakers. Well done. Can I move out of motion 97, please?
President, Congress. Sue Soubyscourt, NEYH, Durham and Teesside, speaking on the Bradford score and factor. Back in the 1980s, and I wasn't alive then, the University of Bradford School of Management introduced a system to deter workplace disruption due to absenteeism. It's now adapted by many employers and affects many, many of our members. It's a mathematical application and does not take into account why an employee is absent from work. It is not a crime
to be ill. The Bradford factor is an overly complicated and very often misunderstood by the management applying it. Furthermore, it's applied objectively and more often leads to direct discrimination and does not take into account the employee's mitigating circumstances such as menopause, disability and mental health. It's also open to abuse by those applying it and penalises those with a genuine illness. Bradford scoring implies that employees are work shy and ready to jump at any opportunity given to get out of working. HR, human, is a key element in human resource management, and conversations are key to supporting employees and to resolve the underlying issues around absence. They should never treat all staff as if they are the same. So we are calling on all regions to campaign for the removal of the workplace scoring system, where it is having a massively detrimental effect on our members. I move.
Thank you, Sue. Seconder. Seconder for motion 97.
Good morning, Madam President, Congress. Michael Birch, North East Yorkshire, Humber Region. First-time delegate, first-time speaker. I'm seconding on motion 97, the Bradford formula. Proud worker at Tetley Tea, keeping the nation going one cuppa at a time. I want to talk directly about how the Bradford factor, employee measure for choice for managing non-attendance, directly impacts on workers like me. I'm a fork truck driver. I've worked at Tetley for 23 years and I also suffer with IBS. Despite my long service and despite my commitment to the company, under this measure I could be too easily identified as a problematic worker just because in any given period I've had a couple of flare-ups. Employers may try to claim that this formula is neutral, but in reality it's directly discriminating against individuals with disabilities or chronic health conditions. It is overcomplicated and may be deliberately misunderstood. The outcome for staff on the ground is targeting of individuals who are unable to meet their imposed targets due to factors beyond their control. This is discrimination that we must challenge. Fairness in the workplace cannot be achieved through a one-size-fits-all approach. I believe that if employers really want the best from their workers, they should be offering support with those with disabilities and chronic health conditions to assist them in delivering at work, not writing them off because of this one formula. Congress, as a movement, we must challenge all injustices when it is committed blatantly. The Bradford factor is clearly discriminating and we should all put our collective efforts behind campaigning to remove it from every workplace across this country. Congress, I second.
Well done, Michael. Perfect timing as well. And mover of motion 98, please. Mover of motion 98. North East Yorkshire and Humber. No? It'll fall if nobody comes forward. Motion 98. No, that motion falls. Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to those motions? No? In that case, can I ask CEC to respond, Speaker Samantha Sprout? Just adjusting her speech.
Sorry, it's because the motion 98 was fallen, so I had to change it. President, Congress, Samantha Sprout responding on the behalf of the CEC to motions 96 and 97. The CEC is supporting motion 96 with a small qualification and that we cannot guarantee that GMB will be able to secure the lowest rate of insurance for our career members, but we can certainly investigate. The CEC is also supporting motion 98 with the qualification. So the Bradford factory scoring system is a crude tool often used for management to discriminate against workers. GMB has previously successfully argued for the suspension of Bradford scoring during the COVID lockdowns and for workers experiencing menopause. A concerted campaign demanding the replacement of Bradford with holistic occupational health measures is timely. Our qualification is simply that rather than all regions campaigning for removal, this activity would be taken forward across the whole GMB. 98 has fallen, so the CEC is therefore asking for motion 96 and 97 to be supported with the qualification outlined. That's it, thank you.
Thank you, Samantha. Okay, so the CEC is supporting motion 94, so all those in favour of motion 94, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? That's carried. Do North East Yorkshire and Humber accept the qualification on motion 96? Yes. I think. And on 97? Thank you. I'll put those two to the vote. All those in favour of motion 96, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? That's carried. All those in favour of motion 97, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? That's carried. Thank you. We now move on to political, the Labour Party, debating motions relating to the Labour Party. So could I have the mover of Composite 10, please, if they're ready to come to the rostrum. So that's Composite 10 and motion 182 in this section. And then if people on motion 156, 157 and emergency motion 1 could be ready to speak as well, please.
President, Congress, Matthew Wright, London Region, Essex General Branch and Parliamentary Candidate for Braintree against James Cleverly. In the last 7 years, the government has passed 3 pieces of anti-union legislation, and in the last 14 years, we have seen an unmitigated erosion of living standards, increased precarity, and an ever-growing wealth gap between those at the top and the rest of us. We are enduring the longest wage freeze since the Napoleonic War, and as ever, it is working people who are forced to bear the consequences of Tory misrule. Across the country, workers are robbed of their dignity, and for too many, work no longer pays. But there is hope. Labour's New Deal for working people. A package that was agreed at the National Policy Forum last summer, and which our union played a crucial role in securing and will be transformative for workers. The New Deal promises, among other things, to end pernicious zero-hour contracts, prevent the weaponisation of fire and rehire, and give employees full rights from day one. It will also free trade unions from the recent pieces of anti-union legislation and empower us with new rights of access and protections for shop stewards. It will give workers the security they deserve, and we must ensure this package becomes law. There are some who are more sceptical of the benefits of what, when passed, will be one of the most consequential acts any Labour government has ever done. And while Keir has recently recommitted to the proposals in the New Deal, it is vital that we work with our allies across the movement, within and without the Labour Party, to ensure a Labour government starts the process for turning these commitments into watertight law in the first 100 days of Parliament. Once this is done, we will continue to fight for our hard-earned rights and redouble efforts to encourage Labour to implement the commitments that were lost, including meaningful increases in statutory sick pay, the repealing of anti-union legislation that inhibits democratic and fair closed shops, and the expansion of collective bargaining across the economy. Congress, we have an opportunity to not just dream of change, but to ensure change. If you do not trust Labour, trust in our movement. Ensure we honour our pledges and enact the change our movement and the country needs. One of the fundamental reasons I'm standing is to implement legislation such as this, and our movement needs to make sure that everybody else in the Labour Party feels the same way and keep them committed to the New Deal. So please, vote for this motion vote to keep us honest, vote for the New Deal, and on the 4th of July, vote for Labour. I move.
Thank you, Matthew. Seconder.
President, Congress, Bill Patterson, London Region, X59 here to second Composite 10. Congress, we are in an historic general election now, and that places important responsibilities upon us. There are powerful forces in our society that don't want Labour's New Deal, or at the very least want a low-fat version of it. We know this because over the last few months they've shown their hand. On the 6th of February, Rupert Soames said that the CBI was providing private feedback to Labour on its policy plans, urging it to soften its proposals. On the 15th of February, the Institute of Directors and the British Chambers of Commerce weighed in, arguing that full implementation would impose costs on British business. On March 24th, Lord Mandelson urged Labour not to rush its union reforms and betray business, specifically arguing that Labour should not consider repealing any anti-trade union laws prior to those affected before the 2016 Trade Union Act. On the 30th of April, lobbyists were briefing the Financial Times that the New Deal would be weakened. Then on the 8th of May, we had a battle behind the scenes and in the papers over the draft New Deal, and a meeting on the 14th of May with all the affiliated unions, which agreed a joint statement committing to what was agreed at last year's National Policy Forum. Now, that was a good thing, but it is a fact that the commitment to fair pay agreements has been limited to social care in the first term. That's vital, desperately needed, but Congress, the lesson of the last few months is clear. We must use all the pressure we can bring to bear, because there are people who will push the Labour government constantly and try to undermine the New Deal in the same way they tried to undermine a national minimum wage. Congress, I urge you to support the composite. Thank you.
Well done, Bill. Thank you. And the move of motion 182.
Congress. Andy Newman from Southern Region, moving motion 182. What a state this country is in. What a state. We have a Conservative Prime Minister, disrespecting our nation's history and disrespecting our armed forces by cutting and running from the beaches of Normandy. Absolutely disgraceful. So why? They've got to go. So it can't be soon enough to get rid of this shambles. But why, as a Labour Party member who first joined the Labour Party in 1974, why am I not more excited about the prospect of a landslide government? And I'll tell you there's two reasons. One is our experience in Southern Region of newly elected Labour councils, where those councils have used every bully boy tactic against our members and against the union because they believe in nothing and they think they're being the grown-ups by just listening to the officers and then telling us what the council officers think as if we're children. That's completely unacceptable. The other thing is that I have had the privilege of sitting in some of the selection committees where we're interviewing the people that are prospective Labour candidates. And I have to say they are disappointing, many of them. They've got no life experience. They don't know anything. If they've ever had an original idea, it's died of loneliness. And they believe in nothing. So it's a problem if the party doesn't believe in anything. Because what do we believe in? What we believe in is standing up for our work colleagues, standing up for our communities and building solidarity and helping people. That is our values. And those values used to be recognised in the Labour Party. One of the greatest thinkers of the Labour Party 100 years ago, R.H. Tawney, said that one of the worst aspects of capitalism is it forces people to be selfish and stops people acting in solidarity and building their communities. And he said, because the unions do that, then we are the beating moral heart of the Labour movement. We are the ones that bring the moral compass to Labour. Gordon Brown recognised this when he said, Labour is best when it's Labour. We absolutely have to hold the Labour Party, when it is elected, to account for Actions, not words. The promises are great. They love standing in front of our banners. They love taking our money. They love the photo ops. But are they going to follow through and work for working people, deliver for GMB members? That is what needs to happen. Now, comrades, we need a better government. We absolutely need a Labour government. I want Keir Starmer to succeed because we need a good government that works for this country. We absolutely need that. And every moment that Keir Starmer is working to deliver for our members, we will work with him. We will cooperate. We will build and support that Labour government. But if they don't, if they let us down, if they don't implement the New Deal for working people, if they don't bring in the legislation to make life better for working people in this country, then, well, Nigel Farage asked a question. He said it's inevitable that there will be a Labour government. The question is, who is the opposition? If Keir Starmer and the Labour Party let us down, reluctantly, we may be the opposition.
Thank you, Andy. And seconder.
Jonathan Watts, Southern Region. Congress. This is about the Labour Party in power, and sadly, this experiences Southern Region is hard. As New Labour Council has been disappointing. Let me tell you about Swindon, where Labour took over last year under the control under the former Tory regime. GMB had lost union recognition. Previously, the GMB would not be recognised. And botched the pay and grade of the Tories that led to GMB social workers taking a number of strikes. Labour Party Council refused talks and have used underhand union busting tactics. As a result, a majority of the most experienced child protection specialists have left the employed. The senior social worker managers have told the GMB that children have been put at risk. It is shocking to us that a Labour Council prioritised co-formation with the GMB rather than genuine concerns for their own staff. Can Congress please support this motion? Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Well done. Does anybody wish to oppose those motions? No? Then I can ask Gary Harris to respond on behalf of the CEC, please.
President, Congress, Gary Harris responding on behalf of the CEC to Composite 10 and Motion 182. We welcome Composite 10 and its commitment to campaigning to defend Labour's New Deal for working people. The CEC is supporting this composite with qualifications. Firstly, the individual rights that the composite mentions are only a limited number of policies contained in the New Deal. We cannot forget the collective employment rights that GMB has been fighting for in the New Deal, including greater rights and freedoms for trade unions. These rights won't come without repealing the Tories' anti-trade union laws. The timing of the general election means that we are expecting the Labour Party election manifesto any day now. But additional wording was agreed within the Labour's National Policy Forum final stage reports, stating that Labour will update trade union legislation and remove unnecessary restrictions on trade union activity. Our qualification is that this commitment should cover clauses that restrict trade union activity in line with GMB's long-standing policy that all anti-trade union legislation should be repealed. Thirdly, around outsourcing, the final stage National Policy Forum report commits Labour to bringing about the biggest wave of insourcing of public services in a generation. Our qualification is that the commitment to reinstate and strengthen the two-tier code was a GMB priority achievement, and our outstanding is that it does not override the policy contained in the 2021 Green Paper. Fourthly, the proposed fair pay agreement in social care is desperately needed and should be a priority given the low levels of pay, opportunities and value placed on workers in that sector. GMB has pushed for legal underpinning for further fair pay agreements, and we want to see collective bargaining extended across the economy. Our qualification is that the sectors to be covered would need to be supported by our members through our industrial democratic structures. We know that the New Deal for working people has come under attack internally and externally of the Labour Party, including from employers, and the last few weeks in particular, we have seen that. GMB has stood strong with other unions throughout. We continue to work closely with affiliated unions through the TULO and the TUC, where appropriate. Our qualification is that, naturally, TULO must take the leading role in the fight, in coordinating the work of Labour-affiliated unions. The CEC is asking for motion 182 to be referred so we can look at how widespread these practices are across local government. GMB is clear that no local authority, let alone a Labour-run authority, should be using union busting practices. We are conscious that only 2 local authorities are named in this motion, and more work needs to be done to address the matter. Therefore, the CEC is asking for Composite 10 to be supported with the qualifications set out, and for motion 182 to be referred for the reasons outlined. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you. Does London Region accept the qualification on Composite 10? Yes? Thank you, sorry. And does Southern accept to refer? Thank you. I'll put the composite then. All those in favour of Composite 10, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? That's carried. We now move on to Industrial and Economic Policy, Public Section, and could I have the mover of motion 156 to the rostrum, and could others be ready, 150, 151, 152, also be ready to come down for their speeches. Thank you.
Good morning, President. Good morning, Congress. Christina Piku, London Region, first-time delegate and first-time speaker. Moving motion 156 on NHS staff pay. I'm proud to be a GMB representative and a secretary in C33 branch, supporting hundreds of NHS members in London NHS Trust. Our members knows the NHS is at a breaking point. The number of patients on waiting lists have ascended to over 7 million over the last 14 years. Waiting times have also massively increased for everything from GP appointments to A&E. Waiting times have been also massively increased for everything from GP appointments to A&E. The pressure this causes on NHS staff is huge, doing extra hours and extra clinics in the weekends to try and bring the waiting times down. The pay for unsociable hours is ridiculous, low, and more members on staff are giving up working for NHS and moving to private sectors or even abroad. It is not a coincidence that NHS is falling to recruit and retain staff because the government's total failure to properly fund its NHS workforce. And it's not a coincidence that the pressure on NHS have increased. We still have over 100,000 unfilled vacancies in NHS England alone. The vast majority of NHS workers have seen their pay fall in real terms since 2010, and we are falling behind the rest of the world. Our NHS members work incredibly hard, doing restless, tiring, and absolutely vital works across the country. During the pandemic, these workers were on front lines. We clapped for them, and we called them heroes. But when the time came to truly recognize their sacrifices, they were forgotten. Whoever forms the next government must start immediate pay negotiation to increase NHS staff pay. Please support this motion. Thank you.
Well done, Christina. And seconder, motion 156.
President Congress. I am first-time delegate, first-time speaker. Seconding motion 156 on NHS staff pay. The member I represent work in London North West NHS Trust. The Trust has the largest wait time for the operation in London, a direct result of the failure invest in NHS staff. I support the call for our NHS colleagues and receive fair pay for the vital work they do. The next government must also take urgent steps to make sure outsourced NHS staff who work just as hard and put themselves at just as much risk are paid fairly well as well directly employed staff. Congress, I'm proud to represent hundreds of members working in the Madras at Norfolk Park Hospital, like our friend in Midland. We are dispute over the disgraceful failure to pay the NHS pay deal full to this outrageous staff. We were told that non-consolidated payment was the thank you for payment after coronavirus, and despite all their hard and dangerous work, outrageous staff and thousands of pounds of the worst of. Congress. Madras is private company earning billions of pounds. They can and they must pay their workers what we deserve. Many that should have been given to our member over a year ago. I'm proud to say we are on track to secure a mandate for the industrial action, and when you confirm it, we will be announcing strike action against Madras. I would like to say thank you to Region London, Warrington, and Gavin and Jack Phillips. They support very strongly to Norfolk Park Hospital, the member. So, Congress, I hope you will support us on your dispute and in your our demand that outsourced staff will be included in all future NHS pay deal. Thank you. I second motion.
Perfect timing. Well done. Well done. And mover of motion 157, please. 157. You come in? Okay.
Morning, President, Congress. Colin Story, Political Officer, N61 Branch. First-time delegate, first-time speaker. Motion 157. NHS ambulance workers' pension and retirement age should be aligned with other emergency blue light service workers. NHS ambulance workers are often the first healthcare professionals the public will come into contact with when they become ill or suffer from serious trauma. Likewise, we all watch those documentary programmes which portray the ambulance travelling extremely fast on blue lights to someone in distress or with an injury. We as viewers share that same sense of relief as the ambulance crew arrived on scene, because we know that the injured person will be okay now, and the NHS professional has arrived and made the person well again. But do you ever think what happens to the ambulance worker and the long-term effects that this has? As you become older, many ambulance workers suffer common medical ailments such as stomach and abdominal problems, musculoskeletal problems in the back, neck, knees and shoulders, as well as suffering problems associated with mental health. When you compare the ailments to the nature of the work of ambulance personnel, there are clear links. Many ambulance workers don't often retire at full retirement age because of illness or injury, and will often have their careers terminated well before this. In fact, almost 75% of ambulance staff finish work on the grounds of ill health before the age of 60, compared to a figure of 42% for the whole of the NHS. Given the medical conditions outlined, many ambulance workers will be expected to work beyond the retirement age of 66, as currently there is no provisions for ambulance workers to retire with full unreduced benefits at the age of 60, like those workers of the fire and the police services. Lord Hutton, in his 2011 report titled Independent Public Services Pensions Commission, stated, however, for the uniformed services, the armed forces, police and firefighters, where pension age has historically been lowered to reflect the unique nature of their work, a pension age of 60 is appropriate. Did he just forget to include the ambulance services, or was that an intentional act? There had been a scheme with the NHS called special classes, which, although now closed, did apply to some nurses, physiotherapists, midwives, health visitors and healthcare assistants if the criteria were met. Again, this did not include ambulance workers. Make your own mind up as to why. We asked the GMP campaign on behalf of ambulance workers only to pursue a comparative pension retirement age, either to that of the fire and police services, or considerations for an NHS special class arrangement that was utilised for some NHS workers. I move.
Thank you, Colin. Seconder.
Good morning, Congress. Good morning, President. Andy Rafferty, representing North West and Irish region, branch A76. I'm a first-time delegate and first-time speaker. Congress, it is a disgrace that NHS ambulance staff do not avail of the same pension provision that other emergency blue light service workers do. It is crucial that we lobby the UK Government for a crucial change in policy, granting NHS ambulance staff the same right as police staff to retire early with full pension. These frontline heroes dedicate their lives to saving others, often facing intense physical and emotional strain. Yet, unlike their counterparts in law enforcement, they are denied the option of early retirement with financial security. The gruelling demands of their profession takes a toll on their well-being, leading to burnout and compromised health. By allowing NHS ambulance staff the same retirement benefits as other blue light emergency staff, we not only recognise their invaluable service, but crucially prioritise their welfare. These brave individuals deserve our unwavering support and recognition for their sacrifices. Let us stand together and urge the UK Government to rectify this disparity, ensuring that those who dedicate their lives to saving others can retire with dignity and security. Congress, I urge you to back the motion. Thank you.
Well done, Andrew. And the mover of emergency motion 1. Come in. And the seconder as well, yeah, great. It's all right, don't worry.
Congress President, Sarah Young, North East Yorkshire and Humber Region, moving emergency motion 1, NHS pay. I have stood here for years at Congress and spoke on the NHS crisis and how this government are trying to destroy it. And this year I was going to have a quiet Congress and keep my gob shut. But this has right wound me and my branch up, so here I am again. Sorry. The NHS is still a mess, as it has been for years, and Rishi tells us waiting lists are falling. We know they are going up. Either he can't do his maths, which with the state of the economy I can well believe, or he tells fibs. He laughed at a GP yesterday for calling him out, and she was belittled by his mates. We know he's not interested in the NHS. During the wash-up, he definitely missed the boat with us. The general election push taking over, Parliament dissolved, and he's left our pay rise in purdah. Not only have we had a year-on-year pay cut, but he's ignored us again. We have doctors still striking with no negotiations. He needs to hang his head in shame on what he's done to the NHS. We need the new government elected, when the new government is elected, they need to make the NHS their priority. And if that is a Labour government, then remember your roots. Remember who made the NHS and look after the patients as well, but you need to look after the staff who are on their knees. The pay review body has constantly worked with the Tories for the last 15 years to cut our pay in real terms. They don't like negotiating with us, but that's irrelevant today, as instead of looking at our pay in April as they should have, they've stalled it, never cleared it in wash-up. So again, we wait, with some NHS staff being paid 1 pence over the national minimum wage. We call on Congress that if we return a Labour government on the 4th of July, we ask them to negotiate with the unions, with us, on a worthwhile negotiable pay deal that for the first time in a while makes us feel valued and needed, and that we will work with them to make our NHS better. I move.
Thank you, Sarah. Seconder.
Holly Johnston, delegate from North East Yorkshire and Humber, seconding emergency motion 1. I think this motion highlights the importance of the need to abolish the PRB altogether and have direct negotiations, and also the need for the health unions to work together and coordinate in our actions. The period of purdah and formation of a new government implies that NHS workers are unlikely to witness any pay rise until after the summer recess in September. The prospect of an extended wait for fair compensation is disheartening for the dedicated individuals who tirelessly serve the nation's healthcare needs. We're always sat waiting, time and time again. We need direct negotiations to ensure it's on time and pay is made a priority every year. Our patients, our staff and our service cannot wait any longer. We have millions on waiting lists, patient safety is at risk every day, and staff are undervalued, underappreciated, and are leaving in droves for better pay and better conditions. No pay offer is the same as a 0% pay offer. Fair pay is vital to having a well-staffed workforce, which we need all the time, but especially to get us through the millions on waiting lists. Staff are already working overtime, and we cannot rely on this as part of the workforce plan, nor the use of the private sector. Pay must be a priority for the incoming government, and they must get to work straight away, and we must be ready to say that these issues haven't gone away and things are only getting worse. We have to be ready with actions and demands if an incoming government continue to kick this down the road. I second.
Thank you, Holly. Does anybody wish to speak in opposition to any of those motions? No? In that case, can I ask Mary Hutchinson to respond on behalf of the CEC, please?
President, Congress, Mary Hutchinson, North East Yorkshire and Humber region, responding on behalf of the CEC to Emergency Motion 1. The CEC supports the ask of the motion, as it's certainly something we would expect the new government to prioritise. Our small qualification is that the pay award wasn't under negotiation, as we were waiting on the PRB to report. However, the process had been delayed due to the government delaying asking them to report, and also because they refused negotiation with unions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Does North East Yorkshire Humber accept the qualification on Emergency Motion 1? Yes, thank you. The CEC is supporting motions 156 and 157, and there's been no opposition, so I'm going to take them as one batch. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? They're both carried. And all those in favour of Emergency Motion 1, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? That's carried. Thank you. We now move on to Industrial and Economic Policy, public section. And can I have the move of motion 150, please?
President, Congress, Kirsty Reichley, Scotland Region, moving motion 150, the NHS, a perilous career. For far too long, we in the NHS have been working in uncertain times. The word extremis is now the justification for substandard care of both patients and staff. During COVID, we were all assured that our professional registrations were safe. That providing we were showing professional judgment, then during these times of extremis, we would be protected. It's now 2024. The word extremis is still being used, and we are still being told, just use clinical judgment. Congress, the Tories and the SNP have the NHS on its knees, with no intention of throwing a life-saving rope. I can speak for the situation in Scotland, but I have no doubt it's no different elsewhere in the UK. Senior management are telling our members that they will be protected. That's the problem. We aren't sure. The management approach to this is silence. Members have been left with no support or guidance, been left in a working environment that is becoming perilous to our careers. Congress, as a union with members in the NHS, we should be seeking clarification on what the word extremis means to NHS staff's governing bodies. I'm sure They will find a different view of the situation. We call upon Congress to hold health boards and trusts accountable for the initial guidance released in 2021 and the lack of updated information since. We call upon Congress to seek clarity on how broadly that these guidelines are being interpreted within the practicalities of the current working environment within the NHS. The expectation of increased productivity over safety and staff should never be accepted, and this can happen in any workplace or industry. Every steward needs to be educated and equipped with the tools to be vigilant and ready to challenge both management and government as to what the word extremist means now. The NHS wasn't created to serve the government, it was created to serve the people. Congress, I move.
Thank you, Kirsty. Seconder.
Madam President, Congress, Linda Walker, GMB Scotland, seconding motion 150, the NHS a perilous career. Before I actually go into my speech, I just want to give solidarity to all our fellow NHS workers across the rest of the UK and that emergency motion about pay. Also, I want to actually give a shout out to all the NHS workers in Scotland who, due to securing a strike mandate last year, early 2023, for our last pay deal, we've now secured what will be in 2 years' time a 36-hour working week. And that's for Agenda for Change NHS workers across Scotland. So well done. Solidarity to you. And I hope that the rest of the UK can fight for the same. And there's other things, but I'm not going into that because that's not this speech. OK, so as you've already heard from Kirsty, the term extremis was coined at the time during COVID, when NHS staff, providing they were showing professional judgment and using clinical judgment, they would be protected. Indeed, we need to know what the word extremis means now in 2024. But just let me take you back to pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, there was a staffing crisis. The NHS under Tory and SNP rule for well over a decade has been brought to its knees. In fact, I'd say it's gone beyond that. We all know staffing is an issue, and there are real terms pay cuts affecting recruitment and retention. We know that staff have had to work below what would be considered safe staffing levels for a considerable length of time, and this was before COVID was even a known thing. Then during COVID, things changed for us all, but in the NHS, working without safe staffing levels didn't begin to happen. They were already happening, but this time the government added the word extremist to the description of the times we were in. As my colleague said, the guidance with guiding principles from 2021 has not been updated, and what the word extremist means now needs to be looked at. The principles protected staff from being able to work in situations where they cannot practice adhering to their professional regulators. One example would be below safe staffing levels. What is clear, and I think this is a really, really important point, if during COVID NHS staff were to be protected when using their professional and clinical judgment because they were not able to practice adhering to their professional regulators, and my example of having to work below safe staffing levels, and this is what extremis is, then the NHS was in a state of extremis long before we even had COVID, and still continues today. In fact, the state of extremis has been the position of the NHS for a very, very long time. So yes, we need to be equipped to be able to challenge management and government as to what the word extremis means now. And when COVID was at its height, pressures could be understood. But what's really needed is proper investment in the NHS to take the NHS out of the permanent state of extremis, or nothing is ever going to change. Please support this motion. I second.
Thank you, Linda. And the mover of motion 151.
President, Congress, thank you. Stephen Jones, London Region, moving motion 151, better training for hospital consultants. When inappropriate treatment of medical negligence of ME/CFS sufferers or long COVID sufferers affected relatives and friends of celebrities or politicians, their concerns tend to be published in the newspapers and or in media generally. Recently, Savage Javid, the former Health Secretary, reported on a debate on ME/CFS, which is chronic fatigue syndrome, held in Westminster Hall in May this year, where he highlighted the distressing battle he's with severe ME, which a relative had. I do apologise, I nearly said with a relative had. The Labour MP Furley Anderson also spoke of such struggles for 3 of her constituents. The Times reported on the 3rd of May 2024 that Javid ME patients are too often dismissed by medics. It seems that 62 deaths have been attributed to ME since 2017. Apparently, the government has been working on a care overhaul plan for these patients for over 2 years. It's quite a long time. But its publication has been delayed and is still outstanding. Javid stressed the urgent need of its publication. The fate of many severely ill long COVID sufferers is equally concerning, and a significant number of approximately 2 million such sufferers are potentially affected by the lack of appropriate guidance for surgeons and hospital staff generally. We urge the GMB to do all it can locally as well as nationally to press for better training of hospital surgeons and staff in treating such serious ill patients. I move. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And seconder.
Good morning, President. Good morning, delegates, and good morning, visitors. I'm proud to second the motion 151 submitted by Redbridge Branch from the London region. I'm Tony Durkin, RCN Staff Branch, London region. I was delighted to be offered the opportunity to second this resolution by the local branch. As a registered nurse, we still all know members of the RCN and patients who are suffering with long-term conditions as a result of COVID. These people have a daily struggle, and as a result of this virus, which we still don't understand, it is still living a daily nightmare, very similar to what Simon said from West Midlands about his friend, work colleague Zoe. Too many people in today's society are suffering in isolation. They have become distant from friends, families, and actually work colleagues. The motion asks for more support. We truly believe that the new Labour government will provide that support, and we anticipate that support to come along to support any person with a long-term disability, up and including long-term COVID. We need to stop this argument about efficiency, payment by result, clearing the waiting list, all important as they are, but we actually need to give time, patience and tolerance to enable us to care for people. There's a simple word called kindness, and that's all that we are asking. If it was their mum, dad or loved one that was in that position, they would ask for kindness. That's all we want, to give these people the best opportunity they possibly can. We can make their lives better as a result, and as our slogan says, make life better. So please support the motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. And mover of motion 152.
President, Congress, Melanie Gale, GMB Scotland, moving motion 152, violence and aggression just accepted in the NHS. Violence and aggression, why is this acceptable? Why in the NHS do we accept to be verbally mentally and physically abused. In the NHS, on a day-to-day basis, we are verbally abused by patients, relatives, and even our own colleagues. But why do we allow this to happen? This is not just in an emergency department. This is all across our NHS, in our communities and also in our hospitals. I have experienced verbal and physical abuse on wards. I am a nurse. I have relatives screaming at me because I'm busy with their relative and not being able to give them an update. I've had patients squaring up to me or giving me a go-over near enough. I've had staff members being flung downstairs because a patient didn't like them. So why do we keep carrying on with this violence and aggression? Where is our protection in all of this? And why do we accept it? Because we do. It's time to stop. We have no protection and no security in some of our hospitals. We in the NHS and our GMB Union need to make it clear this is zero tolerance, and we need to protect our staff. It's not acceptable to go to work every single day to face this. So this is why I'm asking, we do need security to be present in our hospitals to protect the staff. We also need to report these incidents as well. We can't just forget about it and go home. It's not acceptable. The day has come for all NHS workers to feel safe in their workplace. We provide an essential service as frontline workers, and this includes all NHS workers, and we deserve to be protected in our workplace. Congress, we need to make the public aware it is not acceptable, and if we have security on our premises for the protection of all, we need to take this to the government to make it very, very clear we are not accepting this anymore. We do require funding to ensure all NHS workplaces have security. We need to protect our staff. It's time to make our NHS safe. I ask Congress, please support this motion. I move.
Well done, Melanie. Seconder.
Madam President, Congress, Elizabeth Ahrens, GMB Scotland, seconding motion 152. I have been a mental health nurse for over 28 years and also a victim of violence and aggression from patients and their families. This is not exclusive to adult services, as I predominantly worked within older adult services, which is patients over 65 and above. I was advised this is part of the job and we just have to accept it. We should never accept any abuse in any workplace. In 2021, following an NHS staff survey, it was reported that 14.3% of workers have experienced at least one act of physical violence. In that year alone, this is an average of 200 violent attacks a day on NHS staff, which is unacceptable. Experiencing and witnessing physical or verbal aggression can have a lasting effect on a person's mental health and well-being, which also can result in healthcare professionals needing to take time off work or even leave an already depleted workforce. Culture changes are a priority for many organisations, and the NHS shouldn't be no different. Lack of resources place our workforce at risk on a daily basis, which not only impacts on patient-centred care, it affects our NHS staff who are trying to deliver safe and effective patient care without the added risk of physical harm. Congress, please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Well done. Does anybody wish to oppose these motions? No? Then can I ask Penny Robinson from the CEC to respond, please?
President, Congress, Penny Robinson, London Region, responding on behalf of the CEC to motions 150 and 151. The CEC is supporting both of these motions with a qualification. On motion 150, our qualification is that it is the employer's responsibility to train staff on local standards and policies. GMB's role is to train their reps with the skills and knowledge to spot issues and to make the challenges. GMB can produce bespoke training as and when needed and support members and reps in calling out when working conditions are not safe. On motion 151, this motion fits well with GMB's existing policy approach to COVID-19 and occupational ill health more generally. The CEC's qualification is simply to recognise that different bodies are responsible for NHS training in the devolved administrations. As a result, a single approach may not be appropriate, and GMB regions and nations may be better positioned to lobby for change and influence policy. Therefore, the CEC is asking for Congress to support motions 150 and 151 with the qualifications set out. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Does Scotland accept the qualification on motion 150? And does London accept the qualification on motion 151? Thank you. So all those in favour of motion 150, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? That's carried. All those in favour of motion 151, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? That's carried. And the CEC are supporting motion 152. All those in favour of that motion, thank you. Anyone against? Thank you. That's carried. We're just going to take a break from the motions and turn to our activist speaker. I think we've seen over the last few years the best contributions we have seen in this hall come from our activists, our lay members. And I would like to invite our first activist speaker of the week to address Congress, Martina Fragiatori, who is a rep based down at Hinkley Point C. She has led fantastic campaigns down at Hinkley, and we've asked her to come and speak to you all. Thank you.
Good morning, President and Congress. Thank you for having me. What an honor. I'm a first-time speaker and first-time delegate. I'm Martina Vražitoru, and I'm proud to be a woman working in the nuclear construction industry, representing Wales and the Southwest region and Hinkley Point C. I have a diverse role in the branch, both focusing on equality and diversity, as well as women's specific needs in construction industry, and also a training officer for over 70 reps within the branch. I stand before you today to share a critical aspect of a daily life in construction safety. I want to highlight the branch's achievements and their impact on the union and its members with a specific focus on women's safety. Historically, the construction industry was male-dominated, but times have changed, and now women are joining the ranks. Our health and safety standards are playing catch-up, and as we celebrate 50 years of the 1974 Act, we need to build on it. These standards were defined in a time when women were almost non-existent in this industry. Congress, I'm a proud member and proud to represent the GMB. We are a fair, inclusive and structured union, and we must never stop working towards a better society. During World War I, Mary MacArthur bravely fought to stop the barbaric practice of sweating women workers in ammunition factories. 40 years ago, Jab and Dizay fought for better wages and conditions. And today, I fight for better health and safety standards for women, tailored to our needs and representing our physiology and anatomy. So far, I have been a rep for 1 year, and in that, I hope that we have made a significant impact. Congress, let me tell you that women workers at the biggest construction site in Europe and the first nuclear site in 40 years in England had to wear men's clothing and safety boots. The employers call them unisex clothes, unisex boots, and unisex PPE. I can tell you there is no such a thing. All unisex items are fundamentally designed with men's needs and anatomy as the standard. And there were other problems. The design of the toilets on the site meant that women had to hold a foot in the door while using the toilet to block men from entering. Out of 114 companies operating on site, less than half, including EDF and Baylor, didn't have a menopause policy in place. Over the last year, after intense negotiations, women on site can now feel safe when using the toilet. We now have gender-specific and secured facilities accessible only to women. Additionally, we now have organic, sustainable sanitary provisions which are being provided for free to women on site, which was agreed with the employers. We have negotiated new safety trousers for women that are comfortable, suitable and sufficient at every moment of the month. Made from flexible material which does not reveal the wearer's underwear or cut their blood flow when you have remained in stationary position or when bending over a metal cage to work. Our new boots have been designed specifically for women and provide the necessary support at the right places to stop the blisters. We don't have to wear 3 different sets of socks all year round to stop our feet from swimming in the men's boots. Women's feet are built differently and we have a unique needs. It's imperative that the PPE must adapt to our requirements to keep our women workers safe. This journey for safer women's PPE wasn't straightforward. I had a few obstacles to navigate. As everybody in this hall knows, management doesn't just nod to any request and react swiftly. I can't even tell you how many meetings, phone calls and emails I had to attend and send. But persistence, weekly messages asking about updates and pushy emails mentioning the severity of the issues paid off. As of Monday, 10th June, I can proudly say that thanks to GMB members campaigning, one of the biggest companies on the project started providing women-only PPE store to stop the ridiculous waiting time of 1 month and more for the right size, which was in the end given to someone else, usually a man. I'm now proud to say that menopause policies are being implemented in every company we speak to and that we do not have to suffer pain or embarrassment or be punished for natural changes in our bodies. Congress, as a result of these victories, we have grown the union. Everyone on site can see the way we stand up for members, no matter their gender, the color of their skin, or their religion. Everyone was delighted with the new PPE. Now we call for it to be a national standard, and Congress, that is a campaign I will be taking up. With the help of my branch secretary, our HPC convener, and the regional officers who were always there to help and trust me, I'm demanding, along with Ruth, Goylan, and Mary, who always have their door open for me, we will start a national campaign to bring these improvements into statutory law on every single construction site in the UK. As we say, good PPE is like a good friend, supportive, reliable, and always there when you need it. I aim to continue advocating for women-specific health and safety standards and pushing for more inclusive policies within the construction industry. I want a future where our safety measures are not retrofitted for women, but are designed with us in mind from the start. I urge all of you to support these initiatives and help create a safer and more inclusive workplace for all. Together, we can ensure that our union remains at the forefront of progress and equality. Thank you for your time and attention. Let's build a future where everyone, regardless of gender, feels safe, valued, and taken care of in their workplace. And remember, in construction as in life, it's all about laying a strong foundation, preferably one that includes a good cup of tea and a safe working environment. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Martina, I think you saw from the reaction in the hall how proud we are of you and how inspiring your speech was. And thank you for all the work you're doing on behalf of women in construction down at Hinkley Point C. And Gary and I visited and we saw that amazing work for ourselves when we went there. Thank you. We move back on to the motions. So can I ask movers of motion 218, 219, 221 to come down the front, and then motions C14, Composite 14 and 237 to be ready as well. We're moving on to social policy, the energy and utilities market. So could I have the mover of motion 218 to the rostrum, please?
Jamie Utley, British Gas Rep, GMB North East Yorkshire and Humber Region. President, delegates, brothers and sisters, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on this critical motion proposed by the S15 Energy Branch. Like Gary Smith, I also joined GMB on the first day of my apprenticeship at British Gas. Since then, I've seen the industry change beyond recognition, and I'm lucky enough to have been given the opportunities by the union to contribute to the discussion about the future of our industry. This is a serious moment for the future of energy in the UK and the workers who deliver it. It's completely obvious to anyone serious that the UK needs its own sustainable and stable energy sources for the future. We believe that a core part of that stable energy model is getting serious about hydrogen and its role as one of the solutions in a green domestic heating. As a gasman, I'm not afraid to say that the climate crisis demands urgent action. Hydrogen can be a clean and sustainable energy source, yet despite this, the talk of its use in a domestic setting is too often considered controversial. To take the agenda forward, we have to get political and public support for hydrogen trials. To date, misinformation and fear-mongering has closed down trials before they have barely begun. We have to cut through this nonsense and present the positive case for hydrogen. And that transition must be inclusive and just. We must ensure that the voices of workers are central. The trial of hydrogen in domestic heating should not be a top-down decision imposed on its communities. It should be a shared effort that involves workers at every stage. Our members on the front lines have valuable insights and expertise that can help shape a more effective energy transition. Congress, it looks like we are just under a month away from a Labour government, and we must not waste this opportunity. We think we should take a bold stance. If a proper energy transition with workers at its heart is overlooked, we should consider withdrawing our support as a union on energy policy. This action is not taken lightly, but it underscores the urgency and significance of the matter at hand. Our support must mean meaningful action towards a sustainable and worker-inclusive future. Let us ensure that the transition to hydrogen in domestic heating is seen as a real solution and not just a token project. The collective voices of workers, backed by the political support, is necessary to make this a reality. Together, we can lead the way towards a greener and fairer future for all. Congress, I move.
Thank you, Jamie. Seconder.
Deputy President, Paul Hargate, North East Yorkshire and Humber Region. Seconding motion 218. Congress. In 1889, this great trade union was built off the gas industry. And we believe that the same gas industry, but now utilising greener hydrogen gas, has a substantial part to play in this country's energy requirements. As my fellow British Gas engineer Jamie has outlined, there is a positive case for hydrogen. The future energy requirements for home heating will be a very different market. Other renewables, such as air source heat pumps, will have their part to play. But it seems at the minute that hydrogen is the poor relation, getting very little in the way of good publicity compared to the millions being spent by the government on grants for heat pumps. Now, Keir Starmer has said that through the new publicly owned Great British Energy, he wants to close the door on Putin. Well, producing green hydrogen in this country could very well be a part of this. This motion reiterates our commitment to keeping hydrogen high on the public and political agenda. If we don't play our part, we will be left behind. And our gas industry, that employs thousands of people, maintaining appliances and looking after the gas network, will, like the coal industry previously, be placed on the scrap heap. Please support this motion. I second.
Thank you, Paul. Move with 219.
Vice President, Congress, David Ferguson, GMB Scotland, Workplace and Safety Rep for Hunterston B Nuclear Power Station. First time delegate and speaker. Moving motion 219. Congress, I've worked in nuclear power stations for 10 years. Both my grandfather and father also worked in the industry. I've worked at Hinckley, Sizewell, Dungeness, Torness, Hartlepool and now Hunterston. I've watched as Hinckley C gets built in Sizewell C gets planned and the stability that that brings to those areas as workers transition from stations at the end of life to new stations. We could have been going through that transition in the west of Scotland with the Hunterston Sea, but sadly for generations of workers on the west coast, that is not to be because the Scottish Government opposes all new nuclear builds. When Hunterston B was a running station, it employed around 650 people. As we went to defuelling, we dropped to 420, and as we're going to decommissioning, we'll go down to about 240 for a while, and then again until we're all gone. I watched as a young boy how the great shipbuilding towns of Greenock, Port Glasgow, just north of me, lost most of its shipyards, and how much of a devastating effect that had on the area. A way of life ingrained in people scratched away, all the skills lost, and working class people struggling to find new careers. Mining towns across Scotland have suffered the same fate as well. With the end of Hunterston, this has been repeated, a site which for 60 years has provided thousands of jobs for the towns of Largs, West Kilbride, Saltcoats, Ardrossan and Stevenson. The skills here will be lost. Another industry gone, and workers looking for new careers. Already they are heading abroad to places like Abu Dhabi. I know that people have concerns about nuclear. I did before I started working there, coming from a construction background. But there is no one who takes safety more seriously than nuclear workers. Once I started, I quickly realised how safe power stations were in comparison to building sites. I came to learn that people living in Aberdeen receive more radiation per year because of the granite rock they live on than most nuclear workers do. The nuclear industry is so safety conscious that nuclear safety is our overriding priority, is written in stone at the entrance to every power station. Even the backup safety systems have backup systems. With Hunterston A and B providing safe, reliable energy to the grid for 60 years, it has a proven track record for our industry and country. So it's time for a change in the way the Scottish Government looks at the nuclear industry. There could have been a Hunterston C, a Torness B, a mini reactor at Ardere. Congress, it's time for the Scottish Government to end its opposition to new evolving nuclear technology as part of our energy mix. If we're not careful, it will be back to the good old days of power cuts and candles. Congress, support the motion. I move.
Thank you, David. Seconder.
Vice President, Congress, Annette Riley, GMB Scotland, seconding motion 219. Congress, for decades, nuclear energy has been a key part of the UK's energy infrastructure. This is particularly true in Scotland. Scotland has generated the most nuclear energy proportionally for the 4 UK nations. With climate change, the need for nuclear in reaching net zero has never been clearer. And with Hunterston in Ayrshire and Torness in East Lothian both being perfectly placed for new developments, the opportunity is staring us in the face. But the Scottish Government's response has been to threaten and block any and every single proposal for nuclear energy in Scotland. This is an ideological position which undermines the creation of new jobs in Scotland and forcing highly skilled and well-paid jobs that we currently have to go elsewhere. Those workers will also take their taxes, further undermining the tax base of the Scottish Government, which relies on its funding for our public services. We are told that we can rely on wind to meet our clean energy needs, but with ScotWind, the Scottish Government sold the rights to our seabeds for a bargain price. Contract after contract going to free ports on the other side of the world, where human rights and workers' rights were nowhere to be seen, and the Scottish fabricators, like those in Methil, rot. If the Scottish Government was able to import nuclear energy elsewhere, I'm sure they would. It was also unclear as to how they intend to keep the lights on and our homes warm while the wind isn't blowing. Now that the Greens have been unceremoniously punted from the Scottish Government, it's time for the plans to be put in place to take advantage of the next wave of nuclear developments, which are planned for across the rest of the UK, Europe and the world. Likewise, the change in leadership in the SNP, it's time for them to see the sense and seize the opportunity to build Scotland's industrial base, our skills and our energy security whilst on a path to net zero. Nuclear's track is proven, it is clear and a stable source of energy, vital to our energy mix and national security. We need plans, not bans. Please support.
Thank you, Annette. Mover of 221.
President, Congress, I'm Simeon Duarte from the London region, moving motion 221 on the Climate Change Committee. Congress, this motion was drafted in January when it emerged that the Climate Change Committee has based its advice to the government on wrong information and the periods when there would be no output of wind and solar electricity. The periods are far longer than Climate Change Committee advised, and these has consequences in the real world. First, is the amount of backup electricity capacity that has to be held available on standby to cover such periods. This feeds into higher household electricity bills to cover the cost of this backup capacity. Second, is the question about what power generation technology that would be used to provide the backup capacity when it is likely to be available at scale. 2023 Congress recognized that currently is no alternative to gas and little prospect for any realistic alternative before 2030. So zero carbon emission electricity generation by 2030 is a non-starter. This motion call on Labour Party leadership via this Congress to commit to achieving zero carbon electricity generation by 2030 and make proper investment on the manufacturing sector based on the global green energy attainment. Congress just needs to be persuaded that the Labour Party does not have the ability to bypass the laws of physics, nor to overcome the current lack of a viable alternative to gas to generate electricity on the 1 in 6 days where there is no wind and every night where there is no sun. Yet, so far, Labour persists with this 2030 net zero carbon emission electricity pledge. The energy policy launched by the Labour leadership in Scotland 2 weeks ago, 31st of May, repeated the pledge, but this time there was a mention of a role for gas, albeit with plans for carbon capture and storage. As the CEC qualification says, the actual wording of the manifesto yet to be published will be hugely important. It is of utmost importance that the Labour leadership is finalizing the manifesto commitment wording, thus listen to the advice of this Congress on this issue. The reputation of the entire Labour movement for sound and competent government is on the line on this. If Congress is not listening to, there will be avoidable power cuts and blackouts where there is no electricity from the installed wind and solar capacity. It will make no difference even if Labour meets its target to double or triple this capacity. Labour has to recognize that until electricity storage is available at scale at affordable prices and until the technology for carbon capture and storage is developed at scale and at affordable prices, there is no alternative to gas for backup electricity generation. There is an enormous amount of investment worldwide into alternative energy sources, and energy storage technologies. There are strong grounds for optimism. Investment is very, very important. The legal target date to achieve net zero is 2050. Labour can afford to be flexible with the 2030 target. I call on Congress to support this motion. I move.
Thank you, Simone. Seconder.
President, Congress, Brendan Duffield, London Region, seconding motion 221 on the Climate Change Committee. Around the world, people use over 10 billion tonnes of fossil fuel every year. We need to replace all of that with clean energy that doesn't cause pollution. It's like having to climb a really big hill to reach our goal by 2050. The target is 17,000 gigawatts, and there is good news in that thing are getting better. In 2023, the world added 500 gigawatts of new renewable energy. That's 8 times more than what the UK currently has. Over the next 6 years, we might add another 3,700 gigawatts. By 2028, the world could have about 7,000 gigawatts of renewable energy, mostly from solar power. The UK's 2008 Climate Act helped by supporting companies to develop solar and wind energy. However, it's a mistake was made when the UK didn't make sure that more of the supply chain was developed here than in here instead of other countries. As we move forward, the new government should be smart and flexible. They should set realistic targets to stop using our own oil and gas resources too quickly. Instead, we should focus on creating jobs in the UK as we work towards the 2050 goal. It's virtually important that we get this right. We need a government with a successful energy policy to help us all. Congress, I second.
Thank you, Brendan. Anyone wish to speak in opposition? No, thank you. I'll now call David Flanagan to give the CEC reply.
President Congress, Dave Flanagan, North Western Irish Region, speaking on behalf of the CEC to motion 221. The CEC are supporting this motion with a qualification. We note that the Committee on Climate Change has not denied the reports which the motion raises, which were first made on the 20th of January 24. As the motion states, GMB policy on offshore oil and gas was carried at Congress 2023. The motion's call for investment in substantial hydrogen reserves alongside natural gas storage is a welcome addition to that existing policy. The scope of Labour's 2030 targets has been adapted already, including in response to GMB representations, and our qualification is that we should wait to see the final general election manifesto wording. Therefore, the CEC is asking Congress to support this motion with the qualification outlined.
Thank you, David. Colleagues, the CEC is supporting motions 218 and 219. Does London accept the qualification on motion 221? Thank you. All those in favour of motion 218, please show. Any against? That's carried. All those... All those in favour of motion 219, please show. Any against? That's carried. And all those in favour of motion 221, please show. Any against? That's carried. Conference, we have a number of transport motions now. Could the movers of composite 14 please come to the rostrum, and movers of motion 237 follow.
Morning, Congress. Mr. Vice President. Mike Tinian, London Region, moving composite motion 14 on bus driver fatigue. Congress, can we say that bus companies lie in their recruitment practices? No, we can't. But they do play fast and loose with the truth. When a bus company tells its potential drivers that they won't drive 7 days a week, they're telling the truth, more or less. However, what they don't say is that all bus companies in the UK start their week on a Saturday. So you'll do 2 days one week and 5 days the next, working 7 days in total. And they can have you driving 13 days in every 14, and that's in law, with only a 24-hour period off, and that's not a day off, that's a 24-hour period. So they can have you finish work at 3 p.m. on the Monday and have you back to work at 3:05 on the Tuesday, giving you a rest of just over 24 hours. Driver fatigue in the bus industry is at an epidemic proportion. The shortage of bus drivers right across the country is putting a huge physical strain on drivers who cannot achieve a work-life balance. Just last week, a driver in London missed his turning and crashed his bus into the taxi rank entrance at Paddington Station. Now, I don't know why that happened, but I can guess that driver fatigue had some bearing on the mistake. So we must demand that our bus drivers have better pay, shorter hours, because better pay and shorter hours means more bus drivers. Lorry drivers earn a lot more than bus drivers, but bus drivers carry a more important cargo, our children. So we must have our GMB London Assembly members, our councillors and our MPs to put pressure on our local authorities and bus companies to change this dangerous working practices. So any new laws must provide protection for our bus drivers and our children. I move.
Thank you, Mike. Seconder.
Good morning, President, Congress. I am Daksha Parekh from London region, second-time delegate, second-time speaker, seconding composite 14. We need to change the culture around self-reporting and make sure that bus driver fatigue is taken seriously to protect both our drivers and the public. As more people are encouraged to use public transport, something needs to be done urgently. London region will be speaking to the London Assembly Transport Committee on this. However, this committee met in March and agreed that more work must be done to protect bus drivers from fatigue, as there is a lot of evidence over many years showing that this is a chronic and widespread issue. In 2019, 1 in 6 London bus drivers reported falling asleep at the wheel due to insufficient sleep before shifts and changing shift patterns. There are also pressures on bus drivers to meet timetables, which adds stress and potentially increase the risk of collisions. We know that the Mayor of London has set targets for nobody to be killed on or by a London bus by 2030, but that is only 6 years away. Let's work to make sure that schedules minimize driver fatigue and give them adequate rest breaks. So I ask to Congress, please support this motion. Thanks.
Thank you, Daksha. Mover 237.
Vice President, Congress, Adrian Storr, London Region, move a motion 237 on funding for rural public transport. Congress, since 2022 and 2023 and continuing into 24, cuts to bus routes on villages, towns and cities have been happening. This is isolating rural communities, preventing them from easily being able to shop for their essential items or being unable to walk into their local bank for advice. The Traffic Commissioners of Great Britain, which are responsible for the licence and regulating bus services, have seen registrations go down from 10,941 in 22 and 8,781 in 2023, a reduction of 2,160 now. That's 2,160 bus drivers less, and more of the same to come due to cuts to funding in this government. Congress, the public are sold out. However, they too get to work, hospital appointments and such like. If they don't have a reliable public transport available, many cannot afford a car, or they may wish to use a greener form of transport. Pensioners are unable to use their bus services, which enable them to be more engaged with society, thus greatly benefiting their mental health. Congress, it's ironic that we still pay our taxes that supposedly funds these services, and yet it's these services that many do not see. These figures do not include London, as services are regulated within the London boroughs, but what about the rest of the country? What about the vulnerable disabled people, pensioners, and young mothers with children who rely on these services? Transport budgets tend to be targeted at cities, leaving rural towns and areas in danger of becoming isolated. In January this year, The Guardian reported that 1 in 10 bus services were axed in Great Britain in the last year. This is despite government promises of improving local transport connectivity, this being a key pillar of its levelling up agenda. That is what our government has come to. More empty promises, letting down the local communities by them being shut off from friends, families and necessary appointments, as well as our other essentials. Congress, we need to push for funding for these much needed services connecting the country together. Remember too that a 53-seater bus may mean as much as 20 to 50 cars less on the roads at a time. So with over 2,000 cuts, this would mean more cars on the road. Congress, more public transport services in operation could mean less delivery vans on the road, as people would be spending more money on the local shops, whether it's in town, cities or local village high streets. Congress, please support this motion to enable rural villages to be connected with local towns, cities. Again, let's send a message to this government which demands funding and investment in our public transport services. Congress, I move.
Thank you, Adrian. Seconder. And could the speakers in 233 and 234 please come to the front?
Vice President, Congress, Trudy Chew, London Region, Beds County Branch. Thanks, Adrian. Well, he's given you lots of stats and statistics. Well, I grew up in a village. There were 2 buses a week out of my Bedfordshire village, and they went to Luton, but they didn't come back. Now, all those years ago, I could smile sweetly, and it was probably safe, and get a lift from someone. But I don't think that's going to work now, not with the crutch and everything, anyway. So, people will leave villages if they don't have transport to get them into the towns and all the things that they need. Then the Tories will build on them, given half a chance, and those lifestyle choices for people to choose to live in a village and the areas of historical interest will be lost. You may think that this motion doesn't affect you, but if villagers are forced to use cars, then you will notice the traffic and the pollution and the increase on your services. So, please think about this carefully and please support this motion. I second.
Thank you, Trudy. Anyone wish to speak against? No? I'll call Shelley's then to give the CEC report.
Vice President, Congress. Silas Gaglani, responding on behalf of the CEC to Composite 14. which we are supporting with a qualification. Bus driver fatigue is a serious matter, and there should be no misrepresentation in any recruitment practices, let alone in a safety-critical industry. Our qualification is that the branch has clarified that the motion is based on a personal experience some years previously. Further information is required to establish the prevalence of the problem and whether the practices described in the motion are correctly practiced. Therefore, the CEC asking Congress to support Composite 14 with qualifications set out. Thank you.
Thank you, Shailesh. Does London accept the qualification on Composite 14? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. And the C is supporting motion 237. All those in favour, please show. Any against? That's carried. Could the Speaker of 233 please come to the rostrum?
Theresa Will, GMB Scotland, first-time delegate and first-time speaker. President, Congress, in 2022, 462 pedestrians were injured by cyclists compared to 437 injured in 2021, where one person is recorded to have died. There is a rise in the number of accidents year on in year involving cyclists and pedestrians. Law currently exists that reference cyclist pavements and pedestrians, which is Section 72 of the Highway Act 1835, which prohibits carriages of any description riding on any footpath or causeway by the side of any road made or set apart from the use or accommodating of foot passengers. In 1988, bicycles were classified as carriages, meaning that they were then stopped from being ridden on footpaths or roads designed for pedestrians. The legal interpretation is generally that pavements are considered pedestrian footpaths, meaning that cyclists should not ride on the pavement. Also, e-scooters are not allowed to be ridden on pavements in the UK. Dangerous cycling and careless and inconsiderate cycling is legislated for and governed by Section 28 and 29 of the Road Traffic Accident 1988. The Highway Code also states in Rule 64 that you must not cycle on a pavement. It also advises that cyclists take care when passing pedestrians, especially children, older or disabled people, and allow them plenty of room. But Congress note there have been changes to the layout of city centres in recent times, most notably during and after the COVID pandemic. This has most notably been observed by the introduction of cycle lanes and floating bus stops and shared pavements. These changes were introduced with the aim of encouraging cycling, particularly within city centres with the introduction of the low emission zones. Another notable change to the city centre and other places has been marked increase in the number of delivery drivers utilising pedestrian areas rather than roadways. These delivery drivers are more often than not using battery-powered electric bikes, which generally have a high speed than the more traditional pedal cycles, and therefore the risk of pedestrian remains. A quick look on social media would show low standard of safe cycling displayed by cyclists, with numerous recorded near misses involving cyclists and pedestrians at a clearly marked pedestrian crossing, and the majority showing cyclists failing to adhere to traffic signals or clearly marked crossings. We call on Congress to campaign for a review of the layout of cycle paths in our city centres for the safe travel of our blind, disabled and elderly public. I move.
Thank you, Theresa. Seconder.
President, Congress. Margaret Boyd, GMB Scotland, seconding motion 233. This Congress notes that changes to the layout of any city centre with the introduction of cycle lanes has had a negative impact on disabled and elderly people. Well, everybody. Many changes to the pedestrian walkways are dangerous. The construction of cycle lanes in city centres are either in the middle of walkways or running adjacent to bus stops and bus lanes, which means people alighting from the bus are stepping onto the cycle lane and can be injured by a bicycle. Cyclists do not have the right to use public footpaths, and it is an offence to cycle on footpaths. Taken together, this means that cyclists can currently use approximately a quarter of all rights of way in England and about a fifth in Wales. Although cyclists share the same rights as other road users, cyclists also share a duty of care to other vehicles and pedestrians. Cyclists are not required to have insurance like motorists, but if you are injured, a pedestrian is injured caused by a cyclist, you can initiate a personal injury claim against the cyclist in this case, which would obviously be a cost. A 2011 DIT document lists the public places which need not be included in the Stats 19 data, February 24. Also, cyclists running a red light in city and town centres where there are traffic lights are also crossings for pedestrians, according to the Highway Code, informed by the Road Traffic 1988, Section 36. Cyclists must obey all traffic signs and must not cross the stop line when traffic lights are red, January 23. We call in Congress for a review of the layout of the cycle lanes in the city and town centres for the safe travel of our public, to work and campaign with city councils and communities to help change and enforce legislation to those that do not follow the rules of the road. Thank you, Congress. Please support.
Thank you, Margaret. Move 234.
President, Congress, I am Gary Russell, a GMB representative for the London region. I'm a first-time delegate and Speaker at Congress. I am moving motion 234, cycling safety. Cycling is an economical, eco-friendly, health-conscious mode of transportation. As such, it has been a favourite pastime and lifestyle choice. The increasing number of cyclists on UK roads may result in cycling accidents. Ramsden solicitors provide an in-depth look into the prevalence and consequences of these accidents in a bid to underscore the pressing need for robust safety measures. The statistics associated with cycling accidents are pivotal in highlighting the extent of and gravity of the issues with pedal cycle safety. Understanding the data allows us an insight to the guide effects in moving road safety, developing relevant infrastructure and shaping suitable laws that protect cyclists. Policy makers should likewise utilise these figures as first-hand evidence in their pursuit of better infrastructure and more rigorous safety regulations. Despite the dramatic increase of cyclists on the UK roads in the periods assessed between 2004 and 2021, the number of cycling accidents has not necessarily increased. In 2004, there were over 16,600 accidents involving pedal cyclists and 16,458 in 2021, despite there being 2 times more cyclists reported. Additionally, pedal cycle fatalities decreased by 17%. This may be due to improved protection equipment such as helmets or better educational initiatives amongst communities, and what to do in the event of a cycling accident. While the number of casualties did not increase in line with the number of cyclists, there is still plenty of room for improvement. Between 2004 and 2021, serious injuries were reported to increase by 27%, and although they did not result in death, they still may have had significant consequences on the individual's lives. Cycling accidents occur to any array of factors. At the top of the table, between 2016 and 2021, over 80,000 cycle accidents were reported where the vehicles involved with one car. Such accidents are often caused by negligent driving or failing to acknowledge cyclist rights on the roads, and other contributing factors include poor road conditions, leading to dangerous falls and accidents at the workplace involving cycling duties. Prevention is an essential approach when it comes to cycling safety, but the primary cause of such accidents is due to neglect driving. To minimise the risk of being injured in an accident, you should always wear a helmet and reflective clothing and display lights in low light conditions, and make sure you signal to other road users. However, whatever prevention measures you put in place, an accident can still occur. I implore Congress to get behind this motion to improve cycle safety, and hope no one there has to go through the loss.
Can you wind up, Gary, please?
That's it. I move this motion.
Thank you. Seconder.
Stephen Clare, London Region, seconding the motion 234. In 2023, there were 7.4 million people who cycle on the roads for sport, leisure and just travel in England. With many towns and cities adopting e-bikes now, this must have risen significantly. We need help from councillors and MPs to make cycling on our roads safer, with cycle lanes made mandatory for all riders. As a person who cycles a lot for fun with my daughter, and dare to say a little bit of exercise, but as you can see, not that often, I think it should be made compulsory to wear cycle helmets, high visibility clothing, and while cycling on Britain's roads. I also think the police should be allowed to be more proactive in cycling safety, and able to have people front and back working lights. Congress, the challenge is to protect these millions of cyclists on our road, because some of these people will be our children in the future on these dangerous roads. Please vote for motion 234.
Thank you, colleague. Does anyone want to speak in opposition?
I object to 234. Hi, Congress. First-time delegate, first-time opposer, and insanely nervous. So I believe this motion does not seek to make cycling safer. This motion appears to reinforce harmful cycle stereotypes and labour cyclists with additional costs and regulations that make cycling less safe in an already critically vulnerable mode of transport. Just to be clear, we are the most vulnerable vehicle road user, and I am a key worker. The first element of the motion mandates cycle lane usage. This is good in theory, but forcing cyclists into cycle lane usage not only removes my ability to offensively cycle in dangerous situations, but also people park in cycle lanes. This enforcement and restriction has not been thought through. Will I be fined for cycling safely in the centre of a road near a middle aisle bollard as a driver attempts to dangerously overtake me? In the second instance, mandating an unspecified insurance regime for cyclists is inappropriate. It adds additional costs to being a cycle courier, but it also makes leisure cycling and commuter cycle increasingly accessible to many. In a cost of living crisis, that is a bad idea. In the third instance, on helmets, I agree completely. Absolutely, these save people's lives. But mandatory high visibility clothing, this is not even a requirement for motorcycles that go 50 mph plus, never mind a pedal cycle limited to 30 mph and a legal e-bike limited to 15 mph. And who do we as a union expect to cover the cost? Again, this ups the cost of cycling for everybody. In the fourth instance, the law states only that bicycles have light. Solid beams on bicycles can be dangerous for oncoming drivers, if not properly regulated. I've been threatened by drivers historically for having solid beam lights, and this makes a further danger in an already hostile environment. Imagine blinding a driver driving towards a cyclist on a narrow road in the dark. This is not a safe policy for us to adopt. Second to last, it states bicycles should be registered and licensed. Frankly, this is dumbfounding. Licence plates would not prevent theft, and neither does registration. My bike has been marked by local police department and is registered, but this will not stop a theft, and a licence plate can be removed and the bike resold. Congress, how would this be policed? How would it be enforced, and who pays the price for retrofitting licence plates? How do we avoid instances where couriers are targeted further by local police forces, as is the case already in York? I fear this motion moves to making cycling increasingly expensive and convoluted, therefore decreasing its attraction as a cheaper green mode of transport. In a world where we need to decarbonise, putting up barriers to cycling, thinly veiled as safety precautions, is not the right thing to do. Cycle infrastructure should be well thought out and supported everywhere. Safety should be logical and consenting. Finally, think about this, Congress. Every day I work, I am attempting to recruit cyclists. This motion is now asking me to mandate. Please do not vote this way. It is expensive, unsafe, illogical, and it is a motion by drivers against cycling. It's to...
Two, three, four. Right to reply. Do you reply? No. Okay.
Well, that blows what I'm going to say out the water, doesn't it? Eh? Thank you very much, Christian. President, Vice President, Congress. Donna Spicer, I can't even say my name, I'm so shocked. There we go. Responding on behalf of the CEC to motions 233 and 234, which the CEC are supporting with qualifications. Don't shoot me now, sorry. On motion 233, the CEC recognises that serious safety concerns have been raised by people who are blind or of limited mobility about the design of some cycle lane schemes. I got knocked over by a bike getting off a bus once, and it blooming well hurts. Our qualification is that we are not against cycle lanes on principle, and that further investment is needed in cycling infrastructure that is built to accessible design standards. On motion 234, the CEC can support some of the measures proposed. For example, low-intensity cycling registration schemes which have been effective in Denmark and Japan. We support investment in cycling safety, including segregated infrastructure where this is practicable. However, we should not support measures that reduce overall numbers of cyclists, as mandatory helmet wearing has been proved to wherever in the world it has been implemented. It's also not practical for all cyclists to be forced to wear particular clothing to all be insured. Should be happy about that, Christian, hopefully. Other measures should only be supported where there is clear international evidence that they do not reduce the number of people cycling. Therefore, the CEC is asking Congress to support motions 233 and 234 with the qualifications set out. So, thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Could the speakers of 238, 242 and 243 come to the front, please? Does Scotland accept the qualification on 233? Thank you. Does London accept the qualification on 234? Thank you. All those in favour of motion 233, please show. Any against? That's carried. And could all those in favour of motion 234, please show. Any against? Let's just take it once more. All those in favour, please show. All those against? Tell us to the floor. Too close for me to get Right, right. Congress, the show of hands was very close. I'm now calling for the teller's vote on motions. We will follow the procedure in Congress guidelines for the final agenda. You are reminded that only elected or appointed lay delegates seated in the Congress Hall can vote. Please listen carefully. Could the stewards please close the doors? Yeah. Delegates, please remain in your seats until all votes have been cast. Do I have the tellers in the hall? Yeah. Could tellers please go to the GMA desk and collect your voting sheets? London, Tony Chorlton counts Southern. Midlands, Annette Greenwood counts Wales and South West. North East Yorkshire, Humberside, Les Timberley counts London. North Western Irish, Kay Doherty counts Midlands. GMB Scotland, Robert Graham counts North East Yorkshire and Humberside. Southern, Rachel Webber counts North Western Irish. And Wales and South West, Rebecca Jones counts GMB Scotland. Are all the tellers in your place and ready? Tellers all in your place and ready? That's fine. That's fine. Could the general member to auditors be ready, please? I will now repeat the call for the vote on motions. When I can find them. 234. 233. And 233. Oh, sorry. Oh, 234. Sorry, yeah. Yeah, 234. All those in favour of the motion, please show. 234. All those in favour of motion 234, please show. And it's not a card vote. We've got all the tellers in the place. They're going to count the votes now. All those in favour, please show. Put your hands up. Here, all. Delegates, keep your hands up until I say different. I didn't say a card vote.
We don't have any tellers in place yet.
Sorry? Sorry, colleagues, apparently all the tellers aren't in place. I mean, the thing is, they're not supposed to leave the hall, but we're just waiting to make sure they're all in. Right, thank you, colleagues. All the tellers are in now, and they're in their positions. Now, what happens now is, you'll show of hands, they will count all the hands and report back to be counted. So, all those in favour of motion 134, please show. Sorry, 234, apologise. It's... All the tellers back in position, please. No, let's talk out here. All those against, could you please show? Right, I think all the votes have been counted now. Could the speakers of 238, 242 and 243 come to the front, please? Colleagues will continue until they count the votes. Could the Speaker of motion 238 come to the rostrum, please?
We all settle down now? Sorry, but that was my motion, so never mind. What was I doing? Oh, yeah. Mike Tinian, moving motion 238 is it time to move away from TfL. Congress, taxis and private hire drivers in London are done. They're sick of being second-class citizens to London's profit-making arm, buses and tube trains. TfL's own business model directly conflicts with its regulatory and licensing powers, and taxi and private hire drivers will never get a level playing field while it competes with buses and tube trains for market share. Never does a bus stop have lorries parked on it because it's convenient to the local stores. Never will a bus stops closed by scaffold or construction vans that can park with TfL's permission. Taxi ranks are used for these purposes and more. Only a move away from TfL and their draconian blinkered view on licensing can the taxi and private hire trade flourish. An independent body, hopefully not party political, should be sought out. A regulator which is non-profit making, and a regulator that listens. As we all know, good listeners make good leaders. The CEC has asked for this motion to be referred. Let's hope this referral can take place, make this issue move forward. I move.
Thank you, Mike. Seconder. Formally, thank you. Could the mover 242 come, please?
President, Vice President, Congress, my name is David Munyemweri, first-time delegate and second-time speaker. Taxi and private hire drivers exist at the petty tyrannies of the local authorities' officers, with all the bias that comes with the role. We as trade union must protect our drivers' members by insisting that all complaints, both licensing and medical, must be heard by an outside agency independent of licensing authority. Although the CEC has said that this motion relates to London and Southern region, this is a national issue. There are 350,000 licensed taxi and private drivers within the UK, and although we recruit heavily, especially in London, we are only scratching the surface. Lifting our game in the taxi and private hire sectors would create huge benefits for our union. So, with the help of our own very GMB London Assembly, members, councillors, and MPs, we must look at the levelling the playing field by conducting a complaints procedure for our drivers that is independent from the local authorities' licensed officers. We are happy for this to be referred so we can build up examples of cases. Congress, I move.
Thank you, David. Seconder.
President, Congress, Stephen Stratton, London Region, moving motion 243. Who makes the decisions? Professional driving is a privilege that comes with a great deal of responsibility. Local authorities also have a responsibility of regulating and overseeing the professional driving industry to ensure the safety of both drivers and passengers, as well as other road users. This includes monitoring and regulating who is fit to drive. They have the power to revoke or suspend the professional driving licence, and revoking a professional driving licence is a serious consequence for the driver involved, as it can have a significant impact on their life and ability to earn a living. Is it right then that a professional driver can have their licence revoked on medical grounds when the decision is made by someone other than a medical professional? We're saying no, it's not. We need to ensure that these decisions are grounded in sound medical evidence. Local authorities appear to have the power to stop people earning an honest living using the art of delegation. They may delegate to an officer of their choosing the power to tell our member, a professional driver of many years' good standing, that their licence is being suspended or revoked on medical grounds. It's quite a generic term, that, medical grounds. It covers many things, some of which might not be a reason to revoke or suspend a licence, but only someone who practices medicine would know. So, where is the proof that the decision is being taken on the advice of a medical practitioner? There should be more openness and transparency when these decisions are taken, and proof that the decision to revoke or suspend has been made on the advice of a medical practitioner who is qualified to give that advice. In conclusion, this motion demands that local authorities are open and transparent when making decisions to revoke or suspend GMB members' professional licences on medical grounds, and any delegated officer proves that the advice to revoke or suspend is from a qualified medical practitioner and that they have strictly followed policy and procedure detailing the reasoning behind the decision. Congress, I move.
Thank you, Stephen. Seconder.
Vice President, Congress. Elizabeth Hughes, London Region, seconding motion 243. As my colleague has said, there are approximately 57,000 licensed taxi drivers in England and approximately 232,000 private hire vehicle licences, which are currently live in England. These professional drivers are licensed by local authorities, who are in turn legislated through the Local Government Act of 1976, the Regulations Code of 2014, and the good old Town and Police Clause Act of 1847. And it's a lot of legislation. But the Regulations Code specifically lays down core principles on how the process of licensing and of all delegated decision-making in local government should be undertaken. The process of licensing must encompass fairness, integrity, openness, offer value, and deliver a service that is both helpful and responsive. But most importantly, in local government, all decisions must be transparent, must be intelligence-led and risk-based. Congress, as we heard yesterday, our members in the professional driving industry are pushing back against some of the less transparent and less helpful processes and practices imposed by licensing bodies. This motion follows in that currently not all licensing bodies are diligent in making medical calls licence suspensions and revocations dependent on reports from medical professionals. And in effect, this means a professional driver can lose their licence on medical grounds without the right to ask for an independent review of their case, and their only recourse is to take their case to appeal at the local magistrates. Congress, we're talking about a group of workers in England numbering in excess of 300,000 people who can lose their jobs on medical grounds. I second this motion to end this inequity. I ask you all to support. Thank you.
Colleagues, I now have the result of motion 234. For the motion, 112. Against the motion, 170. That motion is lost by 58 votes. Thank you. Can I...
Vice President, Congress, Gordon Gibbs responding on behalf of the CEC to motions 238, 242 and 243, and I'll try and speak in English and not Dudley if I can. Motions 238 and 242 relate to transport within London. We are asking that these be referred so both London and Southern Region can express a view on the merits of the potential consequences of the proposal. Our national local authority lay structures may also wish to take a view, as the precedent set in London may have consequences for employment arrangements in other parts of the country. The motion also needs to be considered in context of GMB's long-standing support for integrated transport policies. The CEC is also asking for motion 243 to be referred so that a view on its calls can also be taken by our local government national committee. GMB represents local authority workers who would be affected by this motion. Therefore, the CEC is asking for motions 238, 242 and 243 to be referred. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. Does London agree to refer motion 238? Yes. Thank you. Does London refer motion 242 and 243? Yes. Colleagues, they've all been referred, so no need to take the vote. You'll all be pleased to know that's the end of the morning session. Enjoy your lunch and be back for 2.
Mi sono alzato, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Stamattina mi sono alzato.